and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I am back at it with your monthly horoscopes, and this is going to be the September 2026 horoscopes for the 12 rising signs. Excited to be back with you guys. We've got a gangbuster month ahead, and we are going to be taking you through all of the most important transits for what's happening in September. I got to tell you guys, it is not a quiet month, and you're definitely going to want to know what is going on in the skies for your rising sun and moon sign. Now, as always, I'm a Western astrologer. I'm going to be taking you guys through what's kind of happening for the Western whole sign system. I hope you guys enjoy, and we're going to kind of go ahead and get into the next slide. Now, for those of you guys who are new here, first of all, welcome. My name is Candice. I'm a Western astrologer and a tarot reader. I am going to be going over in the overview for the 12 signs, all of these transits, okay? So there are so many of them. And you guys can actually find these transits also down below in the description. So you can actually make a copy of them. You can take a screenshot. Or if you want something super easy, check out my website. The link is down below in the description. I am selling 12-month personal forecast calendars that you can download directly into your Apple Calendar for your iPhone, where I'm going to give you the daily transits and what's happening in comparison to your natal chart. So super simple, but for those of you guys who are just wanting to know and kind of getting the scoop for the month ahead, this is what I'm going to be covering. Now, you will notice that there are a few dates here that are in gold, so they're kind of highlighted. Those are going to be the trickier transits, so be mindful of those days. They could be a little bit more difficult to kind of navigate. And obviously, just in general, kind of like a quick roadmap for September before we get into it. This month is actually kicking off with a very tense Mars-Saturn square right out the gate, okay? So it's going to be kind of setting the stage for the month of September. Mars wants to push ahead. Saturn says, hold up, wait a minute. And it's definitely going to be felt pretty directly by the mid degrees of the cardinal rising signs. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and also Capricorn, be advised. Also, I would say Scorpio rising. You know, we are coming off of August where we had eclipses. So the dust is still kind of settling in that way. So be mindful of that. And we're going to see Venus, which will be moving into Scorpio. She's making some very tricky aspects in the sky, and I think that we really want to watch because she's actually in her pre-retrograde shadow. She is going to be coming into a square with Pluto in Aquarius, and this is important because we're going to see this happen again in October. We're going to see this happen again in December. I got to tell you guys, I think that Venus-Pluto square is going to bite. Now, we've got a new moon in Virgo on the 10th, and I think this is a wonderful time to set intentions revolving around health, habits, work, productivity, all of that good stuff. And it's in a nice angle actually to Mars, so there's a lot of get up and go energy to get things done. The same day, we're going to see Uranus is going to station retrograde in Gemini. And by the way, I think the big one is going to be the full moon in Aries at the end of the month on the 26th, when we see a full moon in Aries, and the moon is going to be in conjunction to Neptune. It'll actually be between Neptune and Saturn. So wowzers. Month kind of finishes off with Mars finally breaking into Leo on the 27th after weeks of sitting in Cancer. So we're going to get, I think, a bit of like a burst of creative energy, lots of opportunities for romance and also self-expression, but it will start coming into an opposition with Pluto. So that's kind of the general overview. I will be unpacking all of these transits as we go through the 12 rising signs. I hope you guys enjoy. And as always, if you like my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click that bell button below so you get alerts for other videos that are coming out. I always put videos out on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays. So make sure you guys subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and consider sharing this on your socials with other people who are into astrology. And drop me a comment below, leave me a rising sign. I'd love to hear how these kind of predictions are hitting for you guys, how the month goes. I always get a kick out of like reading the comments at the end of the month to see you guys kind of come back and talk about how some of the predictions that I made, well, probably happened. So I hope it's a beautiful month for you guys. And without further ado, let's get into the 12 rising signs. What's up, Aries and Aries risings? Welcome to your September 2026 horoscopes. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm excited to be back with you today. Obviously, we've got a gangbuster month ahead, and I want to talk a little bit about what's happening with Mars, because obviously that is your chart ruler, and there's actually quite a few things that are going to be happening with Mars this month. Now, the big picture first is Mars is actually spending most of the month still moving through the sign of Cancer. So it's going through your fourth house, which deals with your home, it deals with your family, your emotional roots, and the stuff that maybe you don't post about. It's kind of the feeling that I get. Now, Mars here isn't loud, it's more protective. So think that this is still kind of like this guard dog energy. It's not necessarily about being a warrior. It can also make you feel a little bit more sluggish and defensive, almost like you're bracing for something instead of kind of charging at it. And what you're going to notice is finally at the end of the month, Mars is going to be leaving your fourth house and it's going to be moving into your fifth house. It's going to go into Leo. And that's when the lights kind of come back on for romance or anything connected to creativity, and just honestly plain fun. Now, Saturn is still retrograde in your sign. You have got Neptune that is still retrograde in your sign. Aries, this is in your first house. So your identity, your boundaries are still kind of under construction this month. And Pluto is continuing its retrograde in your 11th house, which is connected to your groups, your future goals, and your allies. Now, Uranus will station retrograde this month. That'll be on the 10th in your third house. And this can have you kind of reevaluating or reassessing anything kind of connected to short distance trips, how you communicate, contracts, things that deal with siblings, maybe short distance. I think I said that. And anything that's connected to like websites, podcasts, anything that you need to kind of like revise and revisit. Okay, so there's going to be some change in how you're thinking and how you're kind of communicating. Now, we're going to walk through how the month is going to unfold, and I'm going to kind of go in order so that way you guys can play along and you can kind of watch. And we're going to open up with probably the most important transit for you guys, which is going to be happening right at the beginning of the month. And I have to say, Aries, don't let this sour the way that you look at September, okay? It's not basically saying that all month is going to be a struggle, but you're probably feeling this from the end of August, kind of going into the beginning of September. And September 1st is not a soft energy. You're going to notice that Mars in your fourth house of Cancer will be forming a square to Saturn in your sign in the first house. So, you know, when Mars and Saturn square, we can't kind of push through the roadblocks. We have to stop at the stop signs. We have to take our time. And I think that, you know, your home front is kind of slamming into something that deals with your personal limits. And it may mean that you feel like you want to do something about your home life or your family, but something, and that could be your responsibility, maybe exhaustion, maybe even self-doubt, is kind of like making you hit the brakes. My advice here is to not force it. Choose discipline over force, and you know, only put energy where it's actually needed. Trying to move these days, trying to deal with a family matter, trying to like do a do-it-yourself kind of home project, these things are not going to go well, so I would kind of hold off on trying to do it on the first. Now, the same day, though, you get a little bit of mercy because you're also going to see that Mercury is going to be in a sextile to to Mars. So it'll be making a sextile to Mars. And what this basically means is with this sextile in your sixth house, so Mercury will actually still be in Virgo at the time, it's going to be easing tension. And this is about supporting clear thinking. You want to use this for practical conversations at home instead of blowing up, and kind of being like strategic how you handle like a home or family matter. Now on the 4th, we're going to see the last quarter moon in Gemini, and this is going to be when the moon is going through your third house and it's coming into a square with the sun in Virgo in your sixth house. Essentially, when we deal with the last quarter moon, it means it's time to kind of release something around communication or mental clutter. So it's a good day to kind of like clean out your inbox, like literally or figuratively, kind of double check or triple check your schedule, or, you know, kind of like clean or organize things. That's really and it's more like mentally. So it's going to be something connected to like cleaning up your computer, cleaning up your inbox, clearing out text messages, that kind of stuff. On the 10th, we have a very big day because there's going to be a whole cluster of transits that are going to happen at the same time. You're going to see that 3 things are going to happen at once. Now, number 1, we're going to see Venus is going to enter into Scorpio. So it's going to be moving into your 8th house of intimacy and shared resources. This is where surface level connection is kind of officially boring to you now, and you want more depth, you want more honesty, you want real merging. Watch for power dynamics that can kind of come up. And then you will also see Mercury enter into Libra in your 7th house. So conversations with partners are going to take center stage. And then Uranus is going to retrograde in Gemini. So in your 3rd house, like I said, I would expect sudden insights, maybe some restlessness and kind of like your daily routine and how you communicate. And I would give yourself some room to feel like scattered for a minute, because I think that that might come up. And then you'll see the new moon is going to be landing in your 6th house of work, health, and also daily systems. So this is kind of like your moment to, set real practical kind of intentions. This is the kind that actually nurtures your emotional foundation, not just your to-do list, because it's going to sextile Mars, your chart ruler, in your 4th house. This can mean it's a wonderful time if you want to set up an office, or maybe you want to be working out from home. Maybe you're tackling like a home or kind of like project, or like cleaning out a garage, or maybe you're trying to kind of figure out how to kind of get scheduled with fixing something at home, or maybe getting organized or unpacking if you're potentially moving, or if you need to hire help. That's something else that could kind of happen here. Now, 2 days later on the 12th, you're going to see Mercury in Libra in your 7th house come into a trine with Pluto. And it's also going to be opposing Neptune in your sign the very same day. Now, first, this is about deep transformative talks in partnerships that really link beautifully with your future goals, social kind of connections, your plans. And this is about where honest conversations can clear the air. But because Mercury is opposing Neptune in your 1st house, you have to be very careful, because clarity in relationships can be a little difficult to find. Things can kind of blur into idealism or kind of straight up projection about who you are compared to other people. So you have to fact check your assumptions and make sure that you're on the same page in relationships with others. Now on the 13th, you're going to see that Mercury will come into a trine with Uranus. Okay, so these are some air trines. We saw some of the same stuff when Venus went through here this last month. This basically is helpful because there's going to be a nice flow in communication, maybe unexpected insights and kind of progressive conversations that really help burn off that Neptune fog from a few days earlier. And then on the 14th, you're going to see the sun, which is going to be in Virgo, is going to be coming into a sextile with Mars. Great day for you. I feel like this is a solid supportive day. Vitality from your daily work or your health routine is kind of backing up your emotional needs, your more kind of like home-focused actions. And it's a great day to link your routines to your sense of security. Now on the 15th, there is a 2-parter, and we are going to see Venus in Scorpio in your 8th house coming into a square with Pluto in Aquarius. And this Venus-Pluto square is bringing intensity around intimacy, shared resources, maybe even your friend groups. Something may need to be released or transformed, so it's about really leaning into honesty, even if it's uncomfortable. You will also notice that the same day, Neptune and Pluto are going to be sextiling each other. So it's offering this kind of quieter, more supportive, kind of like an undertone that makes the harder stuff feel a little bit more purposeful. On the Venus-Pluto square, you could see some kind of drama revolving around changes in friendships, changes in joint finances, changes in intimacy. I want you to pay attention to this because this is going to be important. You're going to see this happen again in October and also in December of this year. So whatever stings about this transit, it's important that you're kind of working out some of the intimacy kinks, having the uncomfortable conversations, focusing on change and transformation so you can lean deeper into relationships. On the 17th, you're going to see another big day, Aries, especially if you happen to have anything from about 27 to 29 degrees. You'll find that Chiron is going to be retrograding back into your sign. Now, over the last several years, you've been dealing with this Chiron transit, and now this is kind of like the grand finale. Chiron coming back to your first house may be kind of, bringing up some of the unhealed wounds that you're kind of dealing with physically, spiritually, or emotionally. You might be asking yourself, am I enough? And that wound can be resurfacing for deeper healing in the next couple of months. It's not a one-day event. This is the start of kind of a longer integration around courage and self-worth until it goes back into Taurus later. I believe it's going to be later, the beginning of next year. Now, on the 18th of the month, we will see that Mercury in Cancer is going to be, Mercury in Libra is going to be opposing Saturn in your sign. And I do think that this may be a little bit of like a challenging day for you. You may want to think about what was kind of happening just a few short weeks ago when we had Venus and Saturn in opposition, because there was a bit of like a reality check in a relationship. This is going to do the same thing, but it's going to be more about communication. Now, this has more of a serious or kind of restricted kind of feeling in conversations, especially around relationships. And it's bumping up because of the opposition to Saturn against your personal kind of boundaries. So you have to speak them carefully on your own limits instead of kind of over explaining them. The same day, we're going to have a first quarter moon in Sagittarius, where the moon is going to be sitting in your 9th house, squaring the sun in Virgo. This represents, I think, for a lot of you, taking time and taking the necessary actions to make concrete actions on your beliefs or your visions, and setting intentions around that as the first quarter square is kind of happening. On the 21st is one of the lighter days. This is going to be when Mercury in Libra is going to be in a sextile to Jupiter in Leo in your 5th house. This is a wonderful day. It's very joyful. It's very optimistic. There's a lot of like good partnership conversations, good for creativity, romance, children, anything that deals with joy. Then on the 22nd, we're going to see the sun leave Virgo and move into your 7th house for the next several weeks. The 7th house is going to be really highlighting for you, obviously, balance, relationships, companionship, and it's that balance between the self, right, Aries, and others, right, Libra, for the better part of the month ahead. This is also going to be here in the Northern Hemisphere, the fall equinox. So we are now going to be starting to kind of prepare as we're getting ready to head into the winter. On the 25th, you're going to see the sun, which is going to be in Libra, coming into an opposition with Neptune in your sign. So if you have anything 2, 3, 4 degrees of Aries, pay close attention because this is hitting you pretty directly. That opposition is where clarity about relationship is likely going to be a little fuzzy, and there can be a sense of idealizing someone or something. It's important with this transit to stay grounded and to practice self-compassion and not to spiral or overextend yourself for other people. Then on the 26th, this is a very big day because we are going to see there will be a full moon that's going to happen in your sign. If you happen to be the first 5 degrees of Aries, sun, moon, or rising, this is going to be very kind of specific for you. It will be happening around 3 degrees. Now, this full moon is also known as the harvest moon, and it's going to be taking place with the sun being in your 7th house and the moon being in your 1st. This is a major culmination of self versus others. It talks a lot about independence versus partnership, and your emotions around your identity are going to be peaking hard. This is about claiming what is truly yours, and the same day you're going to be seeing that the sun is also going to be forming a trine to Pluto in Aquarius, which is giving this kind of empowering, constructive undercurrent to it all. But I think with the moon conjunct Neptune, you could very much be in your feelings. And also, I believe we're going to be seeing Mars at a critical degree. And so that can also kind of indicate a lot of what's coming up, because the full moon is ruled by Mars, is about these emotional shifts that need to happen either at home or with family in order to find the balance between you and other people. On the 27th is when you see Mars enter into Leo, so it's going to be dropping into your 5th house. Finally, confidence and creativity, romance, and heart-centered drive is kind of going to come roaring back. And then on the 28th, we're going to see the sun in your 7th house of relationships forming a trine to Uranus in your 3rd house. Now, this is where sudden insights or kind of progressive developments in relationships may make things feel a little bit more liberating. So liberating conversations, ideas, talks, even travel or kind of unexpected trips with partners can happen here. And then finally, on the 30th of the month, Mercury is going to enter into Scorpio, and it's going to be sitting in your natal 8th house. This is where talks turn more psychological. It's more about intimate conversations, financial information, taxes, insurance, inheritance, and anything that deals with others' money. So it can be very transformative. It can also be great for research. I just want you guys to be mindful that both Venus and Mercury are in the 8th house. So it's really kind of talking a lot about where you're really figuring out how to merge, how to open up, how to be vulnerable when it comes to other people and how to receive support. Now, I think your best days are going to be September 14th. That's the standout day for me with like the Sun sextile Mars. It puts direct supportive energy to your ruler. And also I like the new moon in Virgo because it's also going to be sextiling Mars. We're going to see from the 27th onward is pretty decent because Mars is now going to be moving through your 5th house. So it'll be in a fire sign where it can kind of start forming trines over the next 6 weeks or so to planets in Aries. The full moon in your own sign on the 26th is intense. It's ultimately clarifying, but I wouldn't consider it bad. I would just be mindful that you're probably going to be in your feelings and there could be some really big kind of personal realizations. And I would just say get into some water, meditate, do Neptune things so that way you're not feeling overwhelmed. Difficult days for sure is September 1st. So that is the hardest day of the month, hands down. And I would say you're probably going to feel it a day or two on each side. So I would say from about August the 30th through about September, maybe 2nd, that's when you're going to have that energy that's going to be feeling like it's kind of stopping or thwarting you. Could also be about you putting your foot down about a home or a family situation and knowing your limits. But Mars square Saturn does affect your chart ruler right out the gate. Second rough patch is probably around the 25th when the sun opposes Neptune in your sign, definitely fogging up your sense of identity right before that full moon in Aries. But the bottom line for you, Aries, this month is, I think this month is asking you to tend to your private foundation while the outer planets keep standing, down and helping you kind of reevaluate your sense of self. Early on in the month, patience is really the assignment. And I think by the full moon, you get that real illumination and you're kind of releasing what does not fit personally for you anymore. When Mars shifts into Leo, you then get permission to create, to play, to shine, to have fun, to, be more romantic. And I think it's going to be a very positive end to what might feel a little bit of like a rocky month. Anyway, let's see what the tarot has to say for you guys. What do you need to know about the month ahead? All right, so what do Aries and Aries risings need to know? I love that. And like I said, the sun sextile Saturn, right? And the sun sextile Mars, and also the fact that Mars is going into Leo, a solar sign. So it's like definitely talking about the astrology. The sun is basically saying like the celebration and the joy and the creativity and like overcoming things that have felt very heavy and feeling like, okay, things have been difficult, but I'm going to make lemonade and I'm going to find ways to get creative and come up with solutions. This could also be about children, okay? So you have a full moon in your sign. Some of you guys might find out you're pregnant. Others might be having big changes revolving around creative projects. Younger people can also be about children if you have children. It can also be about romance. So I really feel like this is about when Mars goes into your 5th house, really being in the sandbox, learning how to play, learning how to create, being more active with hobbies, things like that. That's going to kind of give you a little bit of reprieve from what feels a little emotionally heavy on the home front. Aries, I hope it's a great month for you guys. Don't forget to let me know what happens in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys back here in October. What's up, Taurus and Taurus rising? Welcome to your September horoscopes for 2026. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm excited to be back with you today and talk about what's happening for the better part of the next month. As you know, Venus is your ruler, so she is the main character for you in September. And let me tell you, Venus is doing some things. I would definitely be paying attention if I was like a Venus ruled chart. And I think with the beginning of the month, really what we're looking at is Venus is going to be moving through Libra. So she's going to start by moving through your 6th house. And as you know, she's already in her pre-retrograde shadow, okay? So there can be things that can happen all month. Even though Venus is not retrograde yet, that can be very much tied to what's going to get reworked in the months of October and November. Now, when she's moving through your 6th house, it's more about beautifying your routine. Maybe it's going to be about kind of spending a little bit more money, indulging in health spas or things connected to beautifying your office or things connected to pets, or maybe you're going to be spending a little bit more of an emphasis on just focusing on the little like rituals, like beauty rituals and things that you're doing that's a part of your daily routine. This is interesting because you're going to see after that, she's going to be moving into your, on the 10th, she's going to be moving into your 7th house. And so this is a bit of a double-edged sword. Number one, Venus likes to be in the 7th house because if you're a single Taurus or Taurus rising, it's a good time to meet people, to connect with others, to kind of mix and mingle. The double-edged sword is Venus does not do well when she's in Scorpio, and also she is going to be in pre-retrograde shadow. So be careful if you're a single Taurus or Taurus rising. I would say like the next 3 months, like dating can be a little complex. You may meet somebody, but there's no guarantee with the retrograde it's going to stick. There can also be a reevaluation of existing relationships. So Venus in Scorpio in your 7th house, suddenly what has been smooth in relationships isn't necessarily the goal anymore. You know, now it's going to be about depth. And Venus in Scorpio doesn't do surface level relating. I feel like that may not be satisfying to you. You're going to want honesty and like real emotional stakes. And meanwhile, while that's kind of going on, you're also going to see that Venus is going to make the very first square to Pluto in Aquarius in your 10th house of career. So this tells me, because Pluto rules your 7th house of relationships and marriage, Venus rules you, it's also connected to health habits and routine, that it can be a little difficult keeping the peace in your relationships and also maintaining your job this month. Or there can be a sense of relationships needing to change and evolve to support where you're kind of going professionally. So I think you're going to work some of those kinks out. Now, other than that, we'll see Mars is going to be spending most of the month in Cancer. So it's moving through your 3rd house, which is really dealing with action when it comes to communication, siblings, your neighborhood. And then later in the month, it's going to shift into Leo on the 27th. And that will be moving into your 4th house, where this is going to be about taking action when it comes to your home, your living situation. Maybe it's about some disruptions on the home front. Maybe it's about subconscious things kind of coming up. Maybe it's about trying to kind of work towards solitude. And Pluto continues its retrograde in your 10th house of career. So, I mean, man, you've got, you know, Pluto that's going to be, especially if you're an early degree Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising, like the first 5 degrees, Mars is going to square you. Venus is going to oppose you. Pluto is going to square you. Like, just hang in there. Like, it's going to be a couple days where you're going to be like, oh my God, all this pressure at one time. Like, what do I do? And I would just say, one day at a time, take a breath. You know, relationships have to support some of the changes on the home front. They also have to support what's going on at work. And thankfully, Chiron is going to be leaving your sign. Now, Uranus will station retrograde, and that's going to be on the 10th in your house of money. So there can be some kind of financial plot twists that can be kind of taking up, you know, some space here. And it can be about a reevaluation of your resources or your self-worth. All right. Now let's walk through the month in a way that actually kind of makes sense. And we're going to go transit by transit. We're going to start first on September 1st. Okay. So out the gate, we have one of the more difficult transits all month long. This isn't impacting you directly, but we are going to be seeing that Mars, which is going to be in the sign of Cancer in your 3rd house, is squaring Saturn, which is going to be in Aries in your 12th house. And what you'll notice is that there is this drive around communication or local matters, or maybe just signing things, going places, you know, learning something, that you feel like there's like a subconscious block. Like, to me, it feels like for Taurus and Taurus risings, they want to have a conversation with a family member or a sibling. They want to plan a trip. They want to talk to their partner about something, but they're like, now is not the right time. And there's going to be something that's telling you internally that you need to wait. It can also mean like you can't articulate why you're frustrated. And I would just say, choose your words carefully. Try not to force conversations. Now on the same day, Mercury will be sextiling Mars. So we're going to see Mercury in Virgo of romance, children, creativity, sextiling Mars. So to me, it feels like you can lean into that creative, playful thinking that's supporting, you know, action and communication. So it's a good day for organizing your thoughts before you speak, but maybe giving it a day or two before you actually like put them into, you know, action. And then you'll see on the 4th, there is a last quarter moon in Gemini. So the moon will be in your 2nd house of money, squaring the sun in your 5th house of children. And this is about letting go of what no longer feels secure to you, maybe adjusting or like releasing around money, values, and self-worth. No, on the 10th, we've got like a gangbuster day because there's going to be 3 different transits that are going to happen like at one time. First of all, Venus enters into your 7th house. So relationships can deepen fast. Just watch power dynamics. And I'm going to keep telling you guys over and over and over, this Venus retrograde that's coming is nasty. Okay. Go back and think about what happened in 2018 in the fall, in 2008 in the fall. Usually a Venus retrograde somewhere like this could mean you're going in or out of a relationship, or maybe you're reconnecting with an ex, or maybe somebody comes back. And the question is like, is it still toxic, right? Or can it be fixed? Can it be kind of resurrected? And what you're going to see is with Venus square Pluto that there can, like I said, be some power dynamics that are kind of coming up. Mercury enters Libra in your 6th house. So this is good for diplomatic communication. It really helps you organize work and also health matters. And then we're going to see that Uranus retrograde in your 2nd house. Now, this is big because I think there can be sudden insights around money and what you actually need to kind of feel worthy. And financial patterns may shift internally. So maybe just give yourself a little bit of space. And then also we're going to see the new moon in Virgo is going to be landing in your 5th house. So this is wonderful because the 5th house is playtime, creativity, romance. It's very fertile. It's great for trying to start dating or meeting people. It's good for creative projects. And this is about setting intentions around joyful self-expression and anything that's going to be more heart-centered, okay? Especially the sextile to Mars I really like. I think it's going to be about maybe writing projects or things connected to media, or maybe where you're, maybe taking a creative class or something that's going to teach you a little bit more about a hobby. On the 12th of the month, you're going to see Mercury will trine Pluto. So Mercury will be in your 6th house, trining Pluto in your 10th house of career. And really, really great, helpful day. I think that this is where progressive kind of communication flows between your routines and your sense of maybe, values and also money. And then we're also going to see that there's going to be let's see what else is happening that day. Okay, so that's going to trine. Okay, so Mercury is going to trine Pluto, okay, but it's also going to oppose Neptune. That's the catch. And so the feeling that I get is with the opposition to Neptune, work talks support deep career transformation. It can clear the air. But there can be some issues with clarity in matters that can kind of blur, and there can be confusion or hidden factors in some of these job or scheduling changes. So maybe double check the details before you fully commit to anything. On the 13th, you will then see Mercury trine Uranus in your 2nd house. And so this is a nice, helpful kind of progressive flow between your routines and your sense of values and money. And then on the 14th of the month, you're going to see the Sun in Virgo sextile Mars in Cancer in your 3rd house. And this is good. I like this. Creative vitality kind of supporting communication and local action. So a good day to express your ideas with a lot of energy and pizzazz, especially if you have to post anything online, or if you have to be sharing with individuals, or if you have to sign contracts, you have to agree to things. This is a good time to take action. Then on the 15th, Venus squares Pluto, okay? And so this is the big one for you because you will see it happen now. It'll happen in, I believe, October, and then it's going to happen again in December because Venus will retrograde, so it'll make that aspect 3 times. Basically, when your ruler squares Pluto, it's very personal, and it's not just background weather. Intensity and, that kind of surfacing between partnerships in your career, your public image, and something in relating or status may need transformation, and an old power struggle can start to kind of resurface. On that same day, we're going to see Neptune sextile Pluto, okay? So that can be kind of connected to a quieter inner alignment between your private world and your public that's kind of shifting, and it can maybe soften the edges of the Pluto square. On the 17th, we're going to see Chiron retrograde back into Aries, which is a good thing. So it's going to be leaving your sign briefly, Taurus. It'll be back next year. And this basically means that, old wounds around your identity or hidden kind of pain you're now dealing with, and you're dealing with it in a private way. And so it's a lot about spiritual work. It's a lot about healing in, your kind of hidden worlds, and possibly healing identity issues and things that were kind of subconsciously bothering you, now you're having to tend to, where recently, as it's been in your sign, it's been more physical, it's been more obvious, right? On the 18th, we're gonna see Mercury come into an opposition with Saturn. Okay, so this is a little bit more tricky because Mercury can be connected to money, creative projects, things connected to children. And when it opposes Saturn, it almost seems like serious talk in daily life is meeting subconscious limits or, responsibilities. And you really want to speak carefully and really reassess your own boundaries and tell people what you can and cannot do. That same day, there's going to be a first quarter moon in Sagittarius, where the Sagittarius moon in your 8th house will be squaring the sun. And to me, this is really kind of saying it's about taking action when it comes to security, intimacy, shared resources, and really embracing transformation. Now, the 21st, things get a little lighter. You're going to see Mercury in Libra is going to sextile Jupiter in Leo in your 4th house. This makes me feel like you're more optimistic. You're a little bit more practical when it comes to thinking, and that's supporting your home and maybe your family planning, or maybe, Mercury in the 6th house means you're hiring somebody to help you, with a home or a family or like a kid related task. And then on the 22nd, the sun is going to be leaving Virgo and heading into Libra in your 6th house, where the focus is going to be shifting towards work, health, and finding daily balance for the better part of the next month. On the 25th, we're going to see the sun in your 6th house of health and habits will be opposing Neptune in your 12th house of what's hidden and subconscious. I would be a little careful here. I feel like it means that you need more clarity in your routines, and like health can kind of blur with confusion and like overworking and not taking enough downtime. You have to stay really grounded in your practical kind of self-care this month. Then on the 26th, you're going to see that there will be a full moon that's going to be landing in your 12th house. And this one's quieter in a way. It's very external, but has like big internal kind of culminations. And this is about releasing or kind of peaks that are kind of happening around hidden matters. You might feel like you need more solitude, or maybe there's like a lot of really prominent dreams or kind of subconscious things that are coming up for you. In that same day, the sun is also going to be trining Pluto in your 10th house of career. So there's constructive intensity that really can be positive, and it can create a lot of professional kind of shifts. On the 27th, you're going to see that Mars is going to be leaving your 3rd house and going into your 4th. It'll move into the sign of Leo. For a lot of you guys, this means that the energy is now shifting towards home and family, and there's more warmth, there's more confidence here. But I will tell you, with it coming into a square with your sign, beginning to oppose Pluto, and also it will start to kind of come into, over the next couple months, a little bit of friction with Venus. There can be a sense of you being like, wow, like I suddenly have to move, or there's suddenly something I have to fix at home, or there's like a family dilemma I have to deal with immediately. And it's about your relationship with your home, or having things you have to do at home. And I would say having a to-do list would be really beneficial, because you're going to kind of move away from some of the intensity of like domestic conflict. So fixing things, finally putting stuff up you've been meaning to put up. Maybe it's about, cleaning out the garage, or, finally doing that kind of small project at home that you've been meaning to get around to. I would do that stuff. And then finally, you're going to see on the 28th, the sun will trine Uranus. So the sun in your Libra house of health and habits will trine Uranus. This is liberating practical ideas about values and resources, potentially solutions for things financially, or, new job opportunities that could provide a secondary income. And then on the 30th, Mercury enters into Scorpio, and it's going to be sitting in your 7th house. So Mercury and Venus are in your 7th house. So how you communicate, how you love, how you relate is definitely kind of like a big topic. I think, communication really deepens in partnerships, and like there is a lot of relational honesty that can be kind of playing out. Now, I think for you guys, your best days is probably going to be when we have the 14th, where the sun and Mars are going to be sextiling each other. And also when you have Mercury and Jupiter that are going to be sextiling each other on the 21st. Honestly, your ruler Venus, it's not catching a single soft aspect this month. It's really going to get highlighted with like the Venus square. So there's no huge, easy kind of day for you. So I would use the 14th and the 21st as your best windows to make plans, to have conversations. The tougher days are going to be September 15th, and it's going to be because of that Venus-Pluto square. And then 5 days earlier, you might start feeling it 2, 3, 4, 5 days prior to the square happening. Heck, it might even be from the time that Venus is coming out of an opposition with Saturn. You might notice that something's just not quite right from the end of August. I don't know. And then I would watch for those power dynamics in relationships and what comes up, maybe around jealousy or control. And then second to that, I think everybody's going to have a little bit of like a difficult time with Mars and Saturn squaring. on the 1st, okay? And this is just more about whether or not you have conversations or you keep the peace. But I think as soon as Mercury goes into Scorpio, you're going to want to start kind of having conversation with partners or trying to find ways to like kind of negotiate or mediate things. And I think that's going to be the theme that you're going to be working on pretty much like October into November with the retrograde. But Taurus, the bottom line is you're deepening your relationships, and you're also kind of quietly rebuilding your values and your private foundations this month. So Venus in your 7th can bring real intensity in relationships, but that doesn't have to be bad. It can be good. There can be a very attractive, alluring person that you can kind of connect with. And if you've been wanting to meet with somebody, well, you're going to have Venus in that sign for quite a while. The full moon is clearing, I think, a lot of internal space for you. And when Mars lands in your 4th house of home and roots, I think you'll have more confidence to take action at home and also kind of get some work done. I think this is about staying steady and kind of honoring what feels secure and letting the connections transform, you know, whatever it is that in the next couple of months. But I think you guys have got this. All right, let's see what the cards say, what you need to know for the month ahead. What should we tell our Taurus and Taurus risings? 5 of Wands. All right, so this is a card that's just kind of like everything's hitting you all at once and you're kind of feeling like you're getting bamboozled. It's just like boom, 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 you know, and I could see that with Venus starting to oppose you by sign, squaring Pluto, Mars coming into your 4th house. And I would just say you have to take it one day at a time. Like when Venus goes into your 7th house, it's going to be about relationships, and you will be in relationship land pretty much until the end of the month, until Mars goes into your 4th house. And then it's going to be like, wait, but I also have to do something on the home front. So I think a lot of this is like, rather than there being conflict and kind of like feeling like there's resistance, instead of fighting something, it's about kind of acknowledging that something may not be working and that there's a need to go back to the drawing board. And rather than kind of fighting against, you know, the current, recognizing and realizing that like you can only push so far, and like you can try to encourage people to work with you, collaborate with you, but you can't force them. And so I think that that's really what this card is going to be about, is that you may realize that other people are reluctant to change, and that rather than kind of like pushing that, you're going to be more focused on what you need to change and how you show up in relationships, or how you're showing up at work or even at home. So notice where there's a little bit of tension. I know, you know, Taurus, you're ruled by Venus, so you want peace. But sometimes there is a need to kind of recognize where, you know, peace is not always possible, and trying to kind of people please or be overly understanding or diplomatic or like even like codependent on people, it may not be healthy for you. And you might realize that there's like a lot of frustration that's kind of coming up, but you have the ability to create change. All right, Taurus, definitely let me know what happens, and I'll catch you guys back here in October. What's up, my Geminis and Gemini risings? Welcome to your September 2026 horoscopes. I'm excited to be back with y'all. Buckle up, because this is a huge personal month for you guys. Your ruler Mercury is busy, and Uranus is stationing retrograde in your sign. So let's break it down. The big picture essentially this month for my Geminis is that Mercury is starting the month in Virgo. So it's still moving through your 4th house, where there's been much more of an emphasis on organizing the home, talking to family, figuring out, you know, what the plans are for going back to school, or plans revolving around where you're living or what's going on with your roommates, that kind of stuff. And it's been in a sign that's been squaring you. So it's not always the easiest place to have Mercury moving through, but Mercury is actually going to be breaking into your 5th house in Libra, the house of creativity and romance, on the 10th. And I think it's like chef's kiss for you guys. I think you're really going to like this transit, because it's going to be making some really amazing air trines to obviously Uranus in Gemini, but also Pluto in Aquarius. So there is just a lot of things that are linking up between, you know, your natural instinctive curiosity, the drive, the need for change, romance, creativity, you know, Libra, 5th house, and also travel, education, you know, distant places. So there's going to be some really cool stuff that's going to happen with some of those trines. And then you'll see it will eventually move into Scorpio, your 6th house of work, on the 30th. Okay. So it's like, honestly, enjoy the month. I think that once it gets into Scorpio, it gets a little sticky because you are more focused on health and habits, and eventually Mercury will retrograde in this sign, which is not fun. But that's not going to be until we're getting later into like October. And that'll be on the 30th, okay, that it goes into Scorpio. But I think the real headline this month for you guys is that Uranus is stationing retrograde in Gemini. So if you're a Gemini rising, this is going to be anybody who's got anything from 4, 5, 6 degrees of Gemini. Pay close attention when this happens, when the stationing happens, because Uranus is connected to your beliefs, your ideas, education, legal matters, travel. So there could be something that just suddenly shifts in regards to that, or maybe you're making a personal pivot in what you believe in, or what you're sharing, or maybe a publishing or a legal matter, or maybe just your personal style. And that's a direct hit on your identity. So maybe expect the way that you see yourself to shift in unexpected ways over the next couple months. Meanwhile, other planets that are kind of in the sky, we're going to see Mars is moving through your second house of Cancer. So it's going to be there most of the month, where there's more action when it comes to your finances and resources, before hitting your third house on the 27th, where there's opportunities for learning, short distance travel, better communication, especially creative communication, and I think having some fun. And then Saturn and Neptune maintain their retrogrades in your 11th house of friends and future goals, and Pluto maintains its retrograde in your ninth house of beliefs and expansion. Okay, so those outer planets are still retro. So I'm going to go through the month, transit by transit, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means for you guys. We're going to kick off with the first, which I'm telling everybody is going to be a more difficult energy. It's not hitting you directly, but don't let this sour the way that you look at the month, is my advice. Mars is going to be moving through Cancer in your second house of money. It will square Saturn in your 11th house of friends and allies. I think I've told a lot of my Gemini risings, I'm like, y'all can't be spending as much money as you've been spending going out with your friends. And I know that you guys are like buying gifts, going to weddings, going to parties, going to celebrations, but it's almost like you're going to feel like you're reaching your limit financially with how you're showing up. And that could be, maybe there's dues at, a fitness or a wellness club, or maybe you're a part of a community club, or just maybe it's just about you feeling like you have to give with your friends. But your drive around money and values is going to meet some kind of restriction when it comes to your friendships or your long-term goals. And I would say be patient and be realistic about your financial planning. Don't try to push beyond your budget or your financial limits, okay? On the same day, what's beneficial for you is that you're going to see Mercury in Virgo is going to sextile Mars. So your ruler in the fourth house is supporting the action around your values. And it's a good day for practical home conversations, or anything that's like, if you want to take action in your buying property, or you're signing a lease, or you're having a family conversation about a budget. Then on the 4th of the month, there will be a last quarter moon in your sign, where the moon in Gemini will be squaring the sun in Virgo. And this is basically about a personal adjustment, and you're kind of like releasing how you've been presenting yourself. And this is about kind of clearing the mental clutter, especially how you're approaching your emotions or your living situation. And on the 10th, there is like a whole cluster of transits happening at the same time. We're going to start first with Venus entering into Scorpio. So Venus goes into your 6th house, and she's picking up the energy of what's behind the scenes, and also romance, children, and creativity. And like Venus does not do well in Scorpio. She's debilitated, obviously, because this is about, sometimes passion, but also it can be about, sabotage, or, things that are kind of not savory, or kind of like the darker side of love. And Venus is also moving through a house, which is about cleaning things up, organizing, taking care of stuff, like heavy lifting in relationships. And simultaneously, she's shadow. So, I would just say use that 6th house intensity, where maybe you're just really focusing on making some positive changes to your work and your routines. And then you will see Mercury, your ruler, enter into Libra in your 5th house. And this is where it's more playful, creative, more romantic. And then Uranus stations retrograde the same day in your 1st house. And this is the transit of the month for you. So I'm putting it all together, and I'm like, man, there could be some restlessness about your identity and your freedom, maybe some sudden shifts in perception. I would say give yourself a little extra grace on the 10th. And then finally, that new moon in Virgo is going to be landing in your 4th house. And that's about setting intentions, connecting to your home, your family, and your emotional roots. Now, that's also ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is going to be in the 5th. So a lot of your focus on your home zone might be connected to, well, how am I creatively, like approaching making changes at home, or how are kids or romantic relationships factoring into home, that kind of stuff. And so, Mercury will eventually retrograde back to this sign. So I could see for like a lot of my Gemini and Gemini risings that they're like going back and forth in regards to, am I meeting somebody and moving in with them? How are kids factoring into relationships? That kind of stuff. So watch for that. And then on the 12th, Mercury is going to form a trine to Pluto, which is another powerful day for you. The only challenge is that it will also oppose Neptune. Okay, so creative or romantic thinking supports powerful, honest expression tied to your beliefs or, your education or your travel. Then there is some question marks about clarity and getting clarity from a romantic relationship, a friend, an ally, maybe getting some feedback, and you kind of feel like there can be some idealism or some kind of blurred lines with a friend or about your future goals. So things feel a little ungrounded. Then on the 13th, Mercury trines Uranus, okay? Honestly, better day for being like, I didn't get the feedback I need from somebody else. Like, I'm just gonna tap into my intuition and like, what do I feel like I should do? And your ruler is talking directly to the planet Uranus that's reshaping your identity. So I'm expecting sudden, exciting, or creative personal insights. Some of you guys might have a creative breakthrough. Some of you guys might find out you're pregnant. Others might be falling in love. And then on the 14th, you're going to have the sun that's going to be sextiling Mars. And, home vitality is supporting action around money and values. So it's a really good day for practical security building. It can also mean a time when you're physically buying property, you're moving, you're redecorating. And then on the 15th, we're going to see Venus in Scorpio come into a square with Pluto in Aquarius. Okay, so this is intensity around work, health, or habits. Maybe it could be relationships with people at work. It could also mean pets, and where there is some conflict with your beliefs or travel or, anything kind of connected to education. So something practical or philosophical wants to transform. And I think underneath there's a really subtle alignment of your personal kind of collective kind of vision. On the 17th, Chiron is going to retrograde. It's going to go back into Aries. It's been in Taurus and it's going to be going into your 11th house. So wounds around belonging, healing friendship issues, friends going through difficult times, that's all kind of coming up for healing. I would say healing in group settings would be really wonderful. So like a good time to be going to meditation groups. It's a good time to be working out with friends. It's a good time to be seeking self-help groups. Like that kind of stuff can be good with Chiron here. And on the 18th, this is a red flag day for you guys, so pay attention. You will see Mercury, your ruler, in the 5th house coming into an opposition with Saturn in Aries in your 11th house. I feel like your ruler is meeting some kind of restriction socially or with your goals. And so there is this kind of joy versus responsibility that gets tested, or, my hobbies versus other people's hobbies, or my kids aren't getting along with somebody else's kids, or, who I'm dating, my friends aren't like crazy about, or I have to make a sacrifice socially because of one of my children. That kind of stuff comes up. And the same day, you're going to see a first quarter moon in Sagittarius, where the moon in Sagittarius is squaring the sun in your 4th, and you have to take action in a partnership matter. On the 21st, it's a little bit more light and expansive. You'll see another good day for you is Mercury sextiling Jupiter in your 3rd. And this is where kind of like optimistic, creative thinking is supporting creativity. Maybe it is supporting, travel, maybe things kind of connected to like moves. And on the 22nd, we'll see the sun enter into Libra, and it'll be spending the next couple of weeks in your 5th house, where the focus is really shifting towards creativity, romance, pleasure, hobbies, self-expression, children, self-employment, and honestly, dating. I think it's a great dating transit. Now, on the 25th, that Libra sun will oppose Neptune, and that means that there can be some difficulty finding clarity in your creative or romantic life. And it's kind of blurring with your group kind of identity or your friends. And it's important to stay realistic about, your joy and your belonging. There may be a feeling of like having to, entertain yourself or do something on your own, or kind of chase your own kind of pleasure, and not allow yourself to kind of get sucked into somebody else's kind of like doom and gloom, or where other people are kind of avoidant. You can't allow that to kind of impact how you feel about yourself. On the 26th, there will be a full moon in Aries, which will be in your 11th house of friends. And there is this culmination around friendships, groups, where you belong. And that is ruled by Mars. And we're going to see that Mars is actually in the second house. So there's like a real sense of you kind of reevaluating, where do I feel safest in relationships? Where am I putting all my kind of energy into, or who am I investing in? On the same day, that Sun in Libra is also going to be coming into a trine with Pluto. So there is some constructive, I think, intensity to maybe creative, kind of philosophies, maybe growth in education or in travel. On the 27th, you're going to see that Mars is going to enter into Leo. So it'll go into your natal third house, where I would say make note of the fact that you might be trying to do things too quickly. So shooting off texts, shooting off emails. There can be a sense of you wanting to make a rush decision about a vehicle. There can be a lot of just maybe speaking before you think about stuff. I would say, yeah, slow down when you're driving, because there's a tendency to kind of like speed when you're going through that transit here too. Now, communication, learning, and daily movement are all kind of picking up a little bit more confidence and flair in Leo. And on the 28th, you're going to see the Sun in Libra coming into a trine with Uranus in your sign. So this is kind of liberating your self-expression, especially it's very much connected to your identity kind of evolving and feeling like you're kind of leaning more into a creative identity, a romantic identity, and you're feeling like maybe a sense of excitement with something that's kind of happening in your love life or with children or with a hobby. And then finally on the 30th, you're going to see Mercury enter into Scorpio. So now it's going to be sitting in your 6th house, where Mercury does well here. It can really get down to the details with health matters, work matters, scheduling. It's good for finding a job, getting back to the gym, checking in with a doctor. And this is about just your thinking is really deepening at work, and you're thinking a lot about transformation of either where you're working, how you're working, or your health and your habits. And I just want to say, with Venus being in shadow here, I think a lot of my Gemini and Gemini risings are going to be thinking a lot about mental health. I think they're going to be thinking a lot about, whether or not they're in a toxic work environment, if they need to change something about a habit, if they are dealing with anything connected to the health and reproductive organs. That can be a theme here as well. So the best days for you, I think, is going to be September 13th, when Mercury and Uranus trine. I think that is hands down probably the best day. Maybe when the Sun is coming into a trine with Uranus as well. Around the 28th. But when Mercury trines your ruler, it's an easy conversation, and like the planet just stationed on your ascendant. So you're really going to be, I think, in touch with what you need to do to find your own personal happiness. And it's about just, you getting as much support as you can. And then the 21st also, when Mercury and Jupiter sextile, is also a great day, especially anything that deals with communication with romantic partners, planning travel, education, that kind of stuff. But the tougher days are going to be on, the 2 days where you're going to see some negative Mercury aspects. So the first one is going to be September 12th, when Mercury opposes Neptune. And that can leave you kind of second guessing your own thoughts. And then on the 18th, when Mercury opposes Saturn, where you feel like your words are being kind of like they're hitting a wall, and like people aren't receptive to what you're trying to say. And like you might notice there's not a lot of great feedback from friends or from your community during these transits. And you might be kind of doubting something that you're creating or kind of working on, or you get some critical kind of advice from some of your friends or your allies. And I would say let it roll off your back. These 2 days are going to be a little bit tougher for you. And also I would say, just for everybody, be mindful when Mars and Saturn square on the 1st. And I would really tell a lot of you guys, it's about not like overdoing it for like overcompensating and showing up for friends who aren't doing the same thing for you, right? That's just kind of general. But the bottom line for you, Gemini, is that this is a very personal month. I think with Uranus stationing retrograde, it's kind of rewiring how you see yourself. And Mercury is making a lot of aspects this month. So it's very busy. Mars is also very busy with your home. And I think there's going to be a lot of like connections here between the sextiles of your 2nd and your 4th house, where you're investing in things that you feel like are going to be long-term, they're going to be quality. The full moon is also clarifying, where you stand in a friendship. And I would say continue to stay curious this month, let those sudden insights kind of land, and let communication lead the way. You're really updating your identity in real time. So I just say, trust the process. All right, so let's take a look and see what the cards have to say for my Geminis and Gemini risings. How appropriate. This deck has been so sassy lately. It needs some selenite. Ace of Swords. And I laugh because I really feel like, you know, with Uranus on your ascendant, there can just be some sudden like, this is what I think, this is what I feel, you know? And like the trines to Pluto and the things that are going to be from Libra that are going to be trining Uranus really makes me feel like you're having to be very honest and direct about what you like, what you need, what's going to make you happy, what direction you're going in. And Ace of Swords is about like initiating something new. And swords are used to either defend yourself or draw like a line in the sand. So there can be a sense, I think, especially with Mercury in opposition to Saturn, that's like, I don't care if you don't like this. Like, I love it. It makes me happy, you know, and like needing to kind of stand up for that. And also, like I said, it's about not getting sucked into some of the oppositions to Saturn and Neptune, you know, in your 11th house and even the full moon, not getting sucked into other people's like shit. Like you can have other people that can be depressed or they're sad or they're going through their own personal dramas. And I would be like, you have to, you can be a good friend, but you don't have to get consumed by that. So you may have to say to some people, like, that's not my reality, you know, or that's not what I necessarily like believe in. And that's not my personal philosophy. And you have to protect your peace and your happiness by all means this month. So the Ace of Swords really makes sense that you're really kind of sticking to your guns and you're telling people what's up. Great also maybe with Mercury sextile Jupiter, if you have a creative idea, you want to put it to action, you want to start writing, you want to start a blog, you're working on a website, you have a creative idea that just pops up, right? I would say maybe that's good for writing and like working on some of those projects this month. So defend your peace and your happiness at all costs. I hope it's a good month and I'll catch you guys back here in October. What's up, Cancer and Cancer rising? How you guys doing? Welcome to your September horoscopes. I hope you guys are well. Excited to talk to you guys about what's shaken in the skies this month. Obviously, you guys know you are ruled by the moon. So you're going to really want to pay attention to when I talk about the first and the last quarter moons this month. We've got a full moon that's going to be happening in Aries, which is going to be a banger, especially if you have like an early degree Cancer rising or a late degree Cancer rising because it's ruled by Mars. And then also we are going to be having a new moon that's going to be in Virgo, which is going to be sextiling Mars. So it's very fascinating to me that the new and the full moon is very much highlighting Mars in your sign. So even though these are not full moons in your sign, you're kind of like a supporting character throughout these lunations. And I think it's a lot of it's going to be tied to your energy, your motivation, your get up and go energy, maybe where there's a little agitation and you're like really being asked to get outside of your comfort zone. And if you don't like something, do something about it. And we're also going to see that Mars is going to continue to keep moving through your first house. And it's going to be there all month long, really until the end of the month. And then it's going to go into Leo. So basically the big picture is like pay extra attention to the lunar phases. But while Mars is continuing to move through your first house, the real headline here is that there is a strong activation that is continuing and it's going to get highlighted during the new and the full moon. And it's connected to your identity. It's about your body and how you assert yourself. So you can feel crabby or you can get active. And I would be saying getting active in water, okay? So going swimming, maybe you're doing saunas, maybe you are doing some flow and some movement. Anything where you're moving some of that kind of crabby or emotional energy out of your body. So you're not kind of feeling like you're on edge, because some of you guys may feel like that this month, is really, really recommended. Now, it runs most of the month until the 27th, and then it's going to be going into Leo, and then you get a bit of a reprieve. But like all month, you got to keep moving. Saturn and Neptune are continuing their retrograde in Aries in your 10th house of career and public image. Pluto's continuing his retrograde in your 8th house of joint finances and intimacy. And we're also going to be seeing that Uranus is going to station retrograde, and that is going to be happening in your 12th house of what's hidden and kind of subconscious. Venus will be entering into Scorpio, which I think you guys are going to like in your 5th house. That'll be happening closer to the 10th. And that's basically where all of the other planets are. But I'm going to go through all of the transits day by day and kind of talk about how this is going to be impacting you personally. Now, the month kicks off with a Saturn-Mars square, okay? And so honestly, because Mars is in your sign, Saturn is in Aries. Aries and Cancer, are not going to like this square. There's no way around it. I'm just going to be honest with you. This goes back to what happened or what was seeded in April. So you're going to have to put on your thinking cap, and I would honestly recommend going and listening to the video that I did with Mars in Cancer, because I do cover this square, and I talk about how when this square happens, it's connected to when Mars and Saturn was seeded in, I believe it was like probably April of 2026. And it looks like you have been trying to kind of have some kind of professional breakthrough, where you're either trying to go after your dream job, you're trying to figure out what you want to do, you're trying to establish yourself, you're trying to kind of be seen as kind of a leader. And so this is the first square. And I would also go back to what happened when Mars was squaring Neptune, because likely you maybe felt a little lost, or you were kind of confused, or you were straying from what you felt like you were supposed to be doing. And like the Mars Saturn square might actually kind of, realign you a little bit. But I don't think you're going to like it, especially if you have anything, I would say like 12, 13, 14 degrees of Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Take it easy on the first. Mars in Cancer squaring Saturn in your 10th house is where your personal drive and your identity is meeting some kind of career restriction or some public pressure. It can be a boss that's being critical, a parent that's being critical, and it can feel like frustration about how you're showing up in the world. And I would say this is a day where you want to avoid forcing status moves or trying to force yourself to launch a job or to get along with a parent. Channel the energy very carefully and try to kind of diffuse it so you're not having any tension with authority figures. Saturn in the 10th could be cops, it could be judges, it could be like superiors, so you don't want to go toe-to-toe with these people. On the same day though, Mercury, which is going to be in your 3rd house of siblings, communication, ideas, is sextiling Mars. And I feel like this is your saving grace, where before you respond to something, sit down and write out your list of grievances, or maybe write a text message or an email. Let it sit for a day before you send it and really get all of your ideas out on paper. And this is about communication that's supporting your personal action. So it's a good day to speak up productively, but I would say really collect your thoughts before you decide that you want to speak to an authority, some type of like authority figure, because I still think there's going to be some conflict. On the 4th of the month, you're going to see this is the last quarter moon in Gemini, and this is landing in your 12th house. So the moon goes through your 12th house. It's squaring the sun, which is going to be in your 3rd. And this is about some kind of private release, subconsciously. So it would be a good day to like meditate, get some extra sleep. It's also about kind of clearing some of that hidden kind of mental clutter. And then on the 10th, you're actually going to see there's going to be a whole cluster of transits that are going to happen on the same day. One, Venus enters Scorpio in your 5th house, which I actually think you're going to like because you're a fellow sister water sign. So eventually, especially if you're the first 10 degrees of Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising, Venus will trine you. And Mars, which is, the ruler or the dispositor of Venus, is in your sign. So you're going to be feeling very creative, very passionate, very romantic. The one thing I would say is that Venus is in shadow. So you will notice in pretty much October through, honestly, like December, Venus will be in and out of Scorpio. So it'll go all the way up to the 8 or 9 degrees. It'll retrograde in October. It'll go direct in mid-November, and then it will finally, come back into Scorpio in December. That means that if you're trying to start dating, if you're trying to get pregnant, if you are maybe reconnecting with old romantic partners, if you're trying to start your own business, things can feel a little wonky due to just the retrograde, and not everything is necessarily going to stick around. And you might be one of the signs that is like reconnecting with somebody who you've been romantically connected to in the past, or you could be reevaluating something kind of connected to your own personal business or to children, or reconnecting with children or your inner child. Now, romance, creativity, and pleasure all deepen with intensity and honesty here. Mercury is also going to enter Libra, so it's going to go into your 4th house of home and family, and thinking turns more inward towards balance and fairness and anything that's maybe communicating with family. And then Uranus is going to station retrograde in your 12th house, where likely you'll have some wild dreams. Maybe it'll disrupt your sleep a little bit, but your subconscious and also your private life is all up for review. And I would just say, with all these things happening on the same day, let the inner shifts happen without forcing any explanation. And you'll have a new moon that's going to be sitting in Virgo in your 3rd house, where you'll want to set intentions around communication, signing contracts, learning, useful conversations. Mercury is the ruler. It's going to be in your 4th. So I could see a lot of you guys thinking about signing leases, buying cars, going back home to visit family, thinking about maybe moving. And this will also sextile Mars in your sign. So like I really like that new moon for you guys. I think it's very productive. Now you will see on the 12th, Mercury will trine Pluto in your 8th, and it will also oppose Neptune in your 10th. This is a challenging day because home and family talks are supporting deep transformation around shared resources or kind of intimacy. So changes on the home front connected to other people's money. And then clarity about home matters is really kind of blurring with, I think, career idealism. It's about staying grounded in your private reality on this day. On the 13th, Mercury and Uranus, over here, is going to trine, and this is about unexpected domestic or emotional breakthroughs being possible. Maybe family secrets or sudden news about family that's kind of coming up that you didn't see coming, but helpful flow between home and kind of your inner world. And I think it might be a day where you're like, I feel like something's going on with my sister, something's going on with my mom, and you call them and like something is up, and you just know. Now, the 14th, I think, is a gift because this is where you're going to see the sun in Virgo in your 3rd house sextiling Mars in your sign. And this is where communication, vitality, maybe siblings, your local kind of community is really supporting your personal drive and identity. And it's sitting right in your 1st house, right? So this is an excellent day for asserting yourself, being productive, and really being, I think, self-expressive. On the 15th, we see Venus in your 5th house of romance, squaring Pluto and Aquarius in your 8th. And this is one you're going to want to watch because you'll see this Pluto square again in October and then again in December. And when Venus and Pluto square, we definitely see there's intensity in romance or creativity. It's meeting, I think, this theme of like deep shared resources or intimacy. And it can be passionate, but it can also be potentially very kind of like power laden. And underneath, there's like this like subtle alignment between your public status and like, I think, deeper change. I also kind of get the impression that this might be where this is like about a casual connection or a fling and you're like, oh, I want something more, I want something deeper. I want something that's going to be more authentic and something that's going to be just like kind of, I don't know, raw, and intimacy and passion is going to like run deep. All right, on the 17th, Chiron's going to retrograde back into Aries. All right, so it's going to leave Taurus. Now it's in your 10th house. And if you're like 27 to 29 degrees of Cancer, sun, moon, or rising, I don't think you're going to like this much because Chiron is squaring you. So this basically means while Chiron's back in your 10th house, that now you're focusing on healing wounds that's kind of connected to your career, your public image, what you want to be when you grow up, that can kind of be surfacing. And it's really about healing your professional life. And then on the 18th, we will see Mercury in Libra will oppose Saturn in Aries. If you have anything 12, 13, 14 degrees, this will also square you, Cancer. So this is telling me that there's going to be some difficulty in communicating things on the home front and also trying to figure out what's going on with work. Home and family talks or meeting some kind of career restriction. So it's about private versus public demands getting kind of tested here. On the same day, you're also going to see the 1st quarter moon in Sagittarius, where the moon is going to be squaring the sun in your 3rd house. And so this is about taking action on work, health, and routines. Now, the 21st, things get a little bit lighter. You're going to see Mercury will sextile Jupiter in your money house. So you're much more optimistic maybe about home, and this is supporting money and values and any kind of security planning. And then on the 22nd, you're going to see the sun is going to enter into Libra, and it'll be spending the next couple of weeks in your 4th house, where the focus is really going to be shifting towards your home, your family, and your emotional foundations. On the 25th, we will see the sun in your home zone opposing Neptune in your career zone. And if you're like the first 5 degrees of Cancer, sun, moon, or rising, this can be a little tricky because it'll square you. It can mean that, you're having a difficult time getting clarity about your home life because it's blurring with something that's like challenging or unsure about your career, and you're really balancing like your home needs against your public image very carefully. Followed by a full moon, which is going to be taking place in Aries in your natal 10th house. Now, this is where there's the culmination of what your professional goals that you seeded back in the spring of this year are now coming full circle. The moon rules you. It will be in conjunction to Neptune, so it's going to be about your beliefs about your career. It would also be conjunct Saturn, which is going to be some kind of karmic situation when it comes to your relationships or your professional authority. It will oppose the sun in your 4th house, so this is definitely like a gangbuster day. I think that, thankfully the same day the sun is actually trining Pluto. So it can mean that, there is constructive intensity, and foundational shifts that's also impacting your career. On the 27th, you will see that Mars enters into your second house of money, resources, and values. Be mindful that Mars will spend about 6 weeks here, and even some more time. Actually, the beginning of next year, will retrograde back into the sign. But Mars in the second house, we have a tendency to kind of like money burns a hole in our pocket. So we will be eating more, consuming more, spending more. So be mindful of that. And I really just feel like there's a personal energy shift towards, what you're building or what you're acquiring, and also working hard and feeling more driven to kind of accumulate money as well. On the 28th, you will see the sun in Libra trining Uranus in your 12th house. And this is about kind of like liberation in your domestic or emotional kind of zones. Maybe it's connected to private freedom. So maybe there is about to be a big change with a family relationship and you're finally releasing some kind of karma. Maybe you're cleaning out your closets or your bedroom or something connected to your kitchen, and everything feels just like a little bit more kind of like, zen. Good day to like feng shui something, I think, too. And you're going to see on the 30th, Mercury is going to enter into Scorpio. So you're going to be feeling like you're open to, communicating more deeply in creative projects, or, a lot of heartfelt expression. I also want to remind you guys that Mercury and Venus are in the same house. So there could be a lot of activity in the dating area. There can also be a lot kind of going on with children or anything connected to creative projects. Now, I think your best days are going to be September the 14th, when the sun sextiles Mars in your sign in your first. And since Mars is kind of camped out there most of September, I think you can make a lot of headway with writing projects, traveling, communication, contracts, anything that deals with siblings. And, any aspect to Mars this month is amplified for you because it's sitting on your ascendant. The 21st, I would say, is a secondary kind of positive day. As for the toughest days for you this month, certainly September 1st with Mars square Saturn is one you want to watch for. And I think it'll probably be closer to like August 30th through September 2nd, to be honest with you guys. That's a direct hit to your identity from your career sector. And because Mars is in your own sign this month, this one hits pretty hard. Also, the full moon on the 26th, that's going to be in your 10th house. About your career is a close second, especially with the moon being in conjunction to Saturn and Neptune. There can be some big changes at work with managers, with your career. Some of you guys might suddenly see a job changes or ends, or there can suddenly be a sense of feeling like burnt out and you want to break away from what you've been doing. And I think just due to the nature of Saturn retrograde there, there's already some kind of pressure that's kind of coming up about what you're releasing in terms of your public status. But the bottom line for you, Cancer, this month, Mars moving through your first house is very, very much about your identity and being assertive and how you're getting stuff done. And even though it's being tested by Saturn in your career zone, I feel like you can move through it. The full moon, I think, is bringing some professional illumination of what is and is not working. And at least Venus and Mercury in your fifth is helping you deepen romance and creativity. Just watch when Mars goes into your second house, channel that energy into security and self-worth, and being kind of conscious of what you're spending. And protect your emotional core this month. Speak your needs, let your outer life kind of catch up to who you're becoming. And I think that you're going to realize by the end of the month how strong you are and how much you've been able to kind of overcome. All right, let's take a look and let's see, what do the cards say for my Cancer and Cancer risings? What do they need to know in the month of September? Four of Coins. Like I said, watch your cash, because I could see with the South Node and Jupiter and Mars being there, it can burn a hole in your pocket. But the Four of Coins is also about like, what do I hold on to and what do I let go of? And like, whenever I see this card, I always like to think about, some advice that somebody gave me once. They were like, look, money is like it's a vibration, right? If you're holding on to it and you're kind of like hoarding it, you're not allowing it to flow towards you. And if you're just spending it too freely, you're not able to really hold on or kind of grow or really have anything of substance. And so I think about with the Four of Coins, it's not just about the money and the things this month. I think maybe with Mars kind of getting in there, But it's more about like, what can I continue to kind of hold together? Like, am I trying to hold things together that is not good for me physically or emotionally? And that could be your job. That could be a relationship. That could be a living situation, you know, and like where you're reluctant or you're resistant to having change. I think with a full moon and Saturn and Neptune retrograde in your 10th house, there's going to be some kind of professional change. It doesn't have to be bad, but it's going to be a change, and like releasing things that aren't going to be sustainable in the long run. Knowing that Venus is in shadow, you know, Mercury and Venus will both retrograde back towards your 4th house. A lot of you guys are going to have some big home and family changes. And I would say get with the program. A lot of the planets opposing Saturn and Neptune this month from your 4th to your 10th are kind of showing you that, you know, there is a lot more attention that you need to kind of put on your home zone before you kind of figure out everything that's going on in your, well, career zone. So don't hold on to things too tightly. Embrace change is what I would say. Okay. All right, Cancer. Well, good luck. I will see you guys here in October. I hope it's a great month for you. And don't forget to leave me comments below and let me know how the month plays out. Take care. What's up, Leo and Leo rising? Welcome to your September 2026 horoscopes. I hope you guys are doing well. Excited to be back at it with y'all. Obviously, we got a lot to talk about. To me, I kind of feel like September for you guys has this slow build, and then at the end of the month, the payoff is big. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Basically, the big picture here is that the sun rules your chart. So anytime I talk about a new moon, a full moon, last quarter moon, first quarter moon, or any planets that are going to be opposing with the sun in Libra, you know, or trining with the sun in Libra, is going to impact you. And like, there's a lot of these transits happening this month, so I don't want to like do a double dose. We'll just kind of go through it. But the sun is actually spending the first half of the month going through your 2nd house in the sign of Virgo. So this is the house that deals with your money, your values, your self-worth. And later you will see closer to the 22nd, it's going to dip into the 3rd house, which is going to be a house that deals with communication, learning, short distance travel, vehicles, siblings. And that's where there's going to be a lot of action kind of going on for the next couple of weeks. Now, as for other planets in the sky, Mars is continuing to move through Cancer in your 12th house. And for most of the month, a lot of the work is behind the scenes. And then at the end of the month, you're going to see on the 27th, Mars is going to be entering into the sign of Leo. So it's going to be moving into your sign where you're going to have a lot more kind of get up and go energy, a lot more pizzazz, a very genuinely strong personal activation for you guys later in the month with that energy. And that could be for travel, for moving, for anything kind of connected to physical fitness. While Saturn and Neptune continue their retrograde in Aries in your 9th house of higher education, beliefs, and travel, and Pluto continues its retrograde in your 7th house of relationships. Uranus will also station retrograde this month, and that's going to be happening in your house of friendships in the 11th house, where there could be some reevaluations of your friends, your connections, and your long-term goals. Now, here's how the month is actually going to play out. And we are going to kick off the month with, honestly, one of the more difficult energies. And thankfully, you're not going to kind of get hit directly, but you still may be feeling the effects of it. This is going to be Mars moving through Cancer in your 12th house, and it's coming into a square with Saturn in Aries in your 9th house. Basically, you're going to feel like there is this hidden or private drive that's kind of meeting restriction around beliefs or higher learning. Maybe some travel delays, maybe some education delays, maybe some kind of crisis of faith that can come up briefly. But I do think that this is going to feel more internal or more kind of like ideological. So this is about slowing down and working behind the scenes for now and not burning yourself out. Now, on the same day, we're going to see that Mercury will actually be forming a sextile to Mars, and Mercury is going to be in your money house, sextiling Mars in your behind the scenes zones. And this is about just really having practical thinking when it comes to your resources, and that it's supporting, I think, like quiet, private action that you're taking. So you might be making money moves and not telling anybody what you're doing, which I think is smart. And then on the 4th, you're going to see the last quarter moon in Gemini, where the moon will be in your house of friendships, squaring the sun in your 2nd house of money. Now, this is where there is some release maybe around friendships, groups, or maybe even your future goals. On the 10th is where we see a whole bunch of transits happen at one time, and this is going to be like a gangbusters day. First things first, Venus moves into Scorpio in your 4th house of home and family, and this is about relating and values kind of deepening at home and some kind of intensity entering family matters. It will be interesting because number one, Venus does not do well when it's in Scorpio because it's about betrayal and things that are kind of heavier or things that represent transformation or letting go. And it's in pre-shadow. So knowing that it's going through your fourth house, to my Leo and Leo risings, I would be like, be very careful with buying and selling homes right now. I would be very cautious also regarding family relationships. And sometimes Venus coming into the fourth means that you're working from home now, or it may mean that a sister or a relative is coming to spend time with you or visit. Venus will square Pluto. So there's going to be some dynamics where there's drama between a home relationship and a relationship or a romantic kind of connection, and where there's pressure to change your relationship or your home or your living situation. And that'll play out again in October. You'll see it again in December. So be very, very, very careful, okay, when it comes to anything that deals with property or real estate here. Then you're going to see Mercury enter Libra. So it'll go into your third house where thinking turns, balanced communication, and kind of like local connection. Your mind may be on, taking courses, short distance travel, signing contracts, things that are connected to, kind of mediating or trying to kind of collaborate with other people. And then you're going to see Uranus stations retrograde in your 11th house of friends and goals and allies. So there could be a plot twist in regards to your friends, or maybe a little restless around your long-term goals. And then belonging also gets a little bit of like an internal shakeup here, followed by a new moon in Virgo, which is going to be in your second house of money, where you're setting intentions revolving around abundance, resources, making money moves for the next year. This is the first new moon that you guys have had without the South Node being there. So it's not about what you're releasing or letting go now. Mercury's the ruler in your third house. So write yourself an abundance check is what I recommend doing, paid by the universe. And this will also sextile Mars. So there's going to be a lot of like meditating on what you're bringing in and like visualizing it before it kind of appears. And maybe there's financial goals revolving around, I want to buy a car, I want to move, I want to travel, I want to take a course, that kind of stuff. And I would say set practical intentions around money and values and what you truly value with this new moon, okay? Now on the 12th, you're going to see Mercury, which is going to be in your third house in Libra. It's going to trine Pluto in your seventh house of relationships. Same day, though, it will also oppose Neptune. This is like a blessing and a curse. On one hand, communication really supports deep partnership transformation. So if you can be honest and transparent and you can be fair and balanced, you can kind of get through to somebody. But there's a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunications that can happen with Mercury in opposition to Neptune, or maybe feeling like idealistic, and maybe some confusion about travel or your beliefs or where you see your relationship going. So you have to stay grounded here. Now on the 13th, Mercury will then trine Uranus in your 11th house, and this is good for unexpected progressive ideas in your social circles, friends that might suddenly say, let's travel, or I have an idea, or I have some help, or I can kind of help you through maybe some of the issues you've been going through. Maybe there can be an invitation to something socially or some kind of surprise friendship connection, which I think is really good. And then on the 14th, the Sun in Virgo is going to sextile Mars in Cancer in the 12th. So I think with your ruler in the second house, of money and values, it means that you're getting some quiet support behind the scenes. So it's a good day for productive yet private steps. And I would be like, you don't have to tell everybody everything that you're doing with Mars in your 12th house. Like, don't. Like, just kind of keep it behind the scenes. And then Venus on the 15th will come into a square with Pluto, okay? And this is about how you communicate in regards to home, family, property, or relationship matters. So there could be a little bit of like a dilemma where you feel like I have to choose between a partnership or like a living situation or, a partnership in my family. And yeah, it's kind of tricky, especially because it's also squaring you by sign. So it's really making Venus, especially if you're an early degree Leo, like it's really making like trying to keep the peace on the home front a little bit more difficult. And I would say sisters, siblings, aunts, cousins, because it's out of 3, or it could represent like 2 women in the family, or going back and forth between, 2 homes or, 2 living situations. And then you're also going to see like that intensity between home and family and partnerships that's going to surface where there's power struggles. But I think underneath that, what's interesting is there is going to be the Neptune-Pluto sextile. So, you know, there's like a subtle alignment between your beliefs and your relationships. And like some of you guys might have to talk to a lawyer, or you might have to go and get some advice that's not family or not a relationship, you know, or you're talking to like a guru or a mentor. You're like, what do I do about this situation? Or if you want to change your home, maybe you guys are discussing what you can do legally. Or, you know, if you're thinking about moving, it could be like talking to a lawyer that's kind of connected to immigration. You know, that could be another way of looking at it. On the 17th, Chiron will retrograde. It'll go back into Aries in your natal 9th house. And this is where wounds about your beliefs, your education, or your life direction are now coming back up for the next couple of months for healing. On the 18th, you will see Mercury oppose Saturn. And this is a more difficult day for communication, particularly if you're trying to book travel, you're trying to kind of file legal documents, if you're trying to deal with an education matter. You'll hit a roadblock here, and that's because ideas versus reality gets tested. And the same day, we have the first quarter moon in Sagittarius. So the moon's going to be in your 5th house squaring your sun, where you have to take action when it comes to, you know, creativity, your love life, or self-expression. On the 21st is one of the lighter days. Mercury will actually sextile Jupiter in your sign. So this is really, I think, beautiful because you are more optimistic when it comes to communication. There's more personal confidence. There's a little bit more flair in how you kind of communicate with people. You might be able to really kind of like, you know, bring attention in the room, and great for self-expression. And then on the 22nd, you're going to see the sun entering into Libra in your 3rd house, where for the next few weeks, your mindset is going to be on diplomacy, you know, talking in relationships, maybe short distance travel, relationships with siblings, maybe moving, and much more focus on communication in your local life. And then on the 25th, this is the day that you need to watch personally, Leo, where the sun in Libra in your 3rd opposes Neptune in Aries in your 9th. I kind of get the feeling here that there's going to be some clarity in thinking that's kind of blurring with like your beliefs. There's like what you have always believed in versus what you're learning. And you have to kind of stay realistic about your direction. Not a great day for signing contracts, not a great day for traveling because there's going to be some misunderstandings. And then the 26th will give you a full moon in Aries in your 9th house. So if you're an early degree Leo, it'll trine you. So I think you'll like it. But that full moon is right between Saturn and Neptune. Okay, so sometimes when you have a full moon in the 9th house, you're graduating, there's a ceremony, there's a wedding, you're traveling, you know, that kind of stuff. But Mars is the ruler, and it's going to I believe it's going to be like right around a critical degree in your 12th house. So it can be saying like you feel like you need to make a critical move with traveling or with a legal matter, and like you feel restless about it. But there can also be, you know, with the same day, you're going to see like the sun in Libra is going to be trining Pluto. So it does bring some kind of constructive intensity around relationships and maybe some like mental breakthroughs in how you communicate what you believe in relationships. Here is the payoff. The payoff is on the 27th when Mars enters into your sign. So Mars in your 1st house is really about what you do first thing in the morning, having a morning routine, getting up, being active, doing your sun salutations. Mars is going to be about traveling or education and your beliefs, and it's also about your home and your living situation. So you're going to feel very motivated to change something about one of these 2 areas of your life. And I would say there's just a lot of personal energy and a drive surge, and like confidence and vitality is very noticeable. So just move your body and do something with that energy. And then on the 28th, you're going to see the sun, which is going to be in Libra, coming into a trine with Uranus in your 11th house, where there could be some, you know, surprise things happening involving travel, siblings, or, you know, social connections, parties, you know, liberating kind of social connections and progressive ideas connected to groups or your future goals. Great day to collaborate with other people or to like put out like a newsletter or, you know, just try to get a lot of traction on social media. And then finally on the 30th, Mercury is going to join Venus and move into Scorpio in your 4th house. So your mind is going to be on, you know, what needs to change or what needs to transform when it comes to home and family. And that could be physically, financially. That can also be your home goals. And both Venus and Mercury will actually retrograde through this house. So I do get the feeling in the months ahead, a lot of you guys will shore up family issues. You might be moving. You might be you know, selling a home, remodeling a home, moving back to, you know, your hometown, connecting with family. So watch for that to kind of happen. I think the best days for you guys, since the sun is your ruler, is every sun aspect is going to matter more for you than most of the other signs. Probably the best one is the 14th when the sun sextiles Mars, the 26th when the sun trines Pluto, and the 28th when the sun trines Uranus. Those are your three strongest days. All three put your ruler in easy flow, and obviously everything from the 27th on, because Mars is entering into your sign. As for the more difficult days, the 25th is going to be your hardest day, not the first, like some of the other signs. The sun in opposition to Neptune is really afflicting your chart ruler. It can leave you second guessing your direction, or maybe feeling unseen or unheard. And September 1st, when we see Mars and Saturn square, will impact everybody. But I think for you, it's a little bit more about some belief changes or some scheduling changes or travel changes that's going to happen here. So it's not really hitting your ruler directly. But the bottom line for, I think, my Leo risings is that September is really refining your values and communication, while the full moon, I think, is really clarifying your bigger kind of like life direction. Mars entering your sign at the end of the month is definitely restoring your confidence and your own personal drive and vitality. So for most of the month, while Mars is in your 12th house, it's about tending to your private kind of needs. Also, Venus and Mercury in your 4th house is going to be about dealing with your foundations, staying honest in your relationships, and maybe stepping forward with like a new renewed vitality once Mars shifts into your sign. You guys are definitely ready to shine, I think, from a much more grounded place. So let's see what the cards have to say for you guys, or the tarot has to say for you guys for the month of September. The card that I got for you is the Six of Wands. Beautiful card. Obviously, it's about victory. It's about success, going where you're wanted. But this is a homecoming card. And so I'm kind of wondering, like, what's going on? Are you coming home to yourself? Are you focusing on finding a place that feels like home? Is Venus somebody coming to visit you and staying at your home? Is there about to be some big changes in the way that you approach home and family? Honestly, I think this is also like Mars coming into your sign, because this is the element of fire. So it can be talking about feeling like, okay, I can conquer the day, I can get things done, I can do what I need to do. And I think that's an important thing that you're going to want to carry into the next month. Just knowing that Mars will oppose Pluto, so there's going to be a lot of going, I got to do what I got to do. I don't want to feel like I'm being forced by anybody to make any decisions, whether that's a partner or that's a family member. It's almost like you have to do things your own way. And so I do feel like there is a sense of like confidence that's going to be surging this month, and feeling a little bit more directed with where you're supposed to be going. And maybe some of the aspects that you're going to see with like the full moon in your ninth is about really believing that you're getting on the path of where you need to go, even if you have to do it alone. So watch for some small victories this month, and I think you're going to feel quite optimistic about whatever projects you're taking on, or especially anything that's kind of connected to your home and your family. Good luck, Leo. I hope it's a good month for you. Don't forget to leave me a comment and let me know how the month plays out, and I'll catch you guys back here in the month of October. What's up, Virgo and Virgo rising? How you guys doing? Obviously, if you're a September Virgo, happy birthday to you. I hope it's a good one for you guys. Obviously, this is your month in a real sense. We've got a new moon that's landing right in your first house, so that's definitely going to be a prime topic that we're going to talk about today. But as you guys know, Mercury rules your chart. So it's extremely active this month. There are so many aspects going on with Mercury. So anytime you hear me say Mercury trine, Mercury oppose, like those things are really going to be impacting you. But what you need to know is that Mercury is actually beginning the month in your sign. So it's starting in Virgo. So not only is it in your first house where you kind of have the bullhorn, but also it's in a sign that it likes to be in. So you can communicate, you can be very clear, you can be very analytical. You can get a lot of stuff done. And then on the 10th, you're going to see Mercury is going to shift into Libra. It'll be sitting in your natal second house, and that's going to be more about money, values, budgeting, communicating what you value in relationships, Libra. And then you're going to see around the 30th, Mercury is going to be moving into your third house, which is a place Mercury likes to be, because this is also about the mind. But Scorpio is going to be more about depth. It's going to be about research, passion, and changing and transforming the way that you think and the way that you communicate. Okay. Now, Mars is still sitting in Cancer in your 11th house, where there's a lot of action in your social group when it comes to your goals and your friends. It'll be there most of the month. And then on the 27th, it's going to go into your 12th house, which is going to be more about taking time to pause, reflect, and relax. We will see Saturn and Neptune continue their retrograde in Aries in your 8th house of intimacy and other people's money. Pluto's continuing its retrograde in your 6th house of health, habits, and routine. And we will see Uranus station retrograde in Gemini around the 10th. So if you have anything 4, 5, 6 degrees of Virgo or Virgo rising, pay attention. I think this Uranus retrograde, just due to the nature of the square, can bring up some big plot twists, well, at work or when it comes to your public status, okay? So let's talk a little bit about how the month actually unfolds. Basically, the first of the month is just kind of kicking the door in. We have a rather unfriendly energy in the sky, and this is where we're going to see Mars in Cancer coming into a square with Saturn in Aries. Now, it's not affecting you directly, but I think everybody's going to feel a little agitated with this square. You know, Mars moving through your 11th house is really about your drive and your connection to committed groups and goals, and it meeting some kind of restriction financially or when it comes to shared resources or necessary change. Likely you'll feel a little bit of like frustration around belonging and whether or not you feel safe or secure in certain friend groups, or whether you want to continue to invest into certain relationships. Choose careful strategy when it comes to navigating some difficult situations with friends or people who can be temperamental. The same day, though, you get a little bit of a reprieve because Mercury, which is going to be in your sign, is going to sextile Mars in Cancer. So this tells me that, you know, clear personal thinking and being direct is really going to support any kind of like assertive, you know, things that you need to do in a group setting. And it's good for practical self-expression. On the 4th of the month, you're going to see the last quarter moon in Gemini, and it's going to be in your 10th house squaring your sun. I don't think you're going to like this day. You might be a little agitated because there is some necessary release that has to happen when it comes to career and your work and your life direction. And then on the 10th, there is a whole cluster of things that are happening. Okay, so the major headline is going to be the new moon, which will be in your sign. So I just want to put a pin in that. But in the background, what's going to be happening is Venus enters into Scorpio in your 3rd, where there's more intensity revolving around your daily communication, your siblings, anything that deals with research, contracts, documents. And then also we're going to be seeing your ruler, Mercury, is going to go into Libra, and that's going to be in the 2nd house, where you're more willing to communicate and talk about shifts in money or values or self-worth. And then Uranus stations retrograde in your 10th house of career, and there's sudden plot twists or insights or maybe restlessness around career in a public role. And then finally, a new moon, which is going to be in Virgo, and that is going to be in your 1st house of self. So this is a major, I think, personal fresh start. Setting intentions around identity, it's around your health, it's also around powerful resets that's really going to play out for the better part of like the next year. We don't have the South Node in your sign anymore, so it's very different. I do think that whether you want to set new intentions in regards to your health, your habits, your appearance, you know, maybe focusing on yourself a little bit more is good on the new moon. It's ruled by Mercury, so it's going to be a lot of like what you are investing into. It's also about your money, your values, your style, and it's going to sextile Mars in your 11th house. So it's going to really give you a lot of get up and go energy to go after what you want or be a lot more socially kind of, you know, active. On the 12th, we see another powerhouse day for you where Mercury and Libra in your 2nd house of money and resources trines Pluto in Aquarius in your 6th house of health and habits. Only kicker is that it is going to be making an opposition to Neptune. And I would say, Virgo, be very careful about financial conversations with people, because this could be a day where, you know, you're trying to kind of get clarity about, you know, how much you're paying somebody, or, you know, how much they owe you, or how much something costs. And like, this could be a day where there could be some financial scams. So be very careful. I think values and resources are thinking, you know, that it's all about supporting deep health or work transformations. And the trine to the 6th house Pluto is about honest, practical conversations being favored. But there's a lot of misunderstandings or kind of fogginess where you can't get clarity around shared resources. So you have to double check the details of maybe what you paid for something. So like, I think with Pluto in the 6th house is you have to be more critical than usual, you know, and maybe the dog got groomed and they double charged you, or maybe, you know, you had somebody order food at work and then you realize that, you know, they used the wrong credit card or something like that, you know, and you're going to have to double check and kind of confirm. On the 13th, Mercury will trine Uranus. Great day. I think one of the better days for you, honestly. So with that trine to Uranus, you're able to really take charge and get clear, even though there's been some unexpected or kind of sudden changes. Now you have better clarity, and there's a lot of progressive ideas around resources and also your career or your public life. And then on the 14th, the sun in your sign will sextile Mars, where, in your first house, your action, your personal vitality kind of supports and kind of like rounds up the troops, right? So having group meetings, sitting down with friends, having some kind of an agenda, talking about your future goals, you're going to be very confident. You're going to be having like this like visionary energy. Now on the 15th, Venus in your third house will come into a square with Pluto in Aquarius in your sixth. And I want you to watch this because Venus is in shadow right now. So she will do this again in October, and then again in December. And this tells me that there's intensity in how you're communicating in regards to your work or your health themes. Like communication can be stressing you out, making you sick, giving you tummy troubles, right? Or there could be a lot of stress in how you're communicating with people at work. Employees, things in regards to scheduling, maybe feeling very critical of other people or other people are feeling critical of you. And I think underneath it, there's like a sudden alignment that's kind of happening because at the same time, Neptune and Pluto are going to be sextiling each other. So, it's about kind of transforming and making shifts emotionally and things kind of connected to your daily habits. On the 17th, you're going to see Chiron is going to retrograde back into Aries in your 8th house. And so this is for the next couple months going to be bringing up where you have some wounds to heal around intimacy, maybe some deep vulnerabilities that are surfacing for healing, things that are connected to intimacy, grief, loss, anything that's dealing with like other people's resources. Sexual healing can come up a lot with Chiron in the 8th house as well. And then on the 18th, this is a red flag day for you guys. You're going to see Mercury in your money house opposing Saturn in your 8th house. And I feel like this is connected to the Mercury in opposition to Neptune, where if somebody was like not honest with you about something financially, now you have to finally iron it out. And like, I don't think it's going to be the best day to like negotiate anything in terms of like money, because Saturn in your 8th house is going to be like either a partner or a bank or another person being like, we don't have the money or we can't help you. And so it's not good for financial matters. And you'll find that like values and money talk is going to meet some kind of restriction around shared resources. So, trying to get a credit, extension or trying to get a mortgage or a loan, like not good days. There's a serious kind of financial or intimate conversation that's probably going to come up. And the same day you're going to see the moon in Sagittarius is going to be sitting in your 4th house, and it's going to be squaring the sun in your sign. So this is going to be the first quarter moon where you have to take action when it comes to a home or a family matter. The 21st is a little bit more optimistic. Good day for you, where Mercury in your money house is sextiling Jupiter in your 12th house, where the focus shifts, I think, here towards being more optimistic about your resources, and it's like supporting your own kind of personal, private, or spiritual growth, and you believe that things are actually going to improve. And then on the 22nd, the sun enters into Libra in your 2nd house, where there is a focus now on money, values, and your self-worth, only to get to the 25th when that sun in Libra opposes Neptune, and you see some of the same energy where you're like, why am I picking up the check for everything? Why are other people not, as receptive or capable or able to pay for things or support or kind of show up? So, there's issues with clarity around shared resources, and you have to stay realistic about security. And then on the 26th, you'll see a full moon in Aries in your natal 8th house, where that full moon is going to be between Saturn and Neptune. It's really highlighting a lot of the back and forth between your 2nd and your 8th house pretty much all month. And this culmination around shared resources and intimacy and deep transformation, it is going to be featuring Mars as the ruler, and Mars is kind of going through the last degrees of Cancer. So maybe there's a dramatic change or transformation about your financial goals, about your friendship goals. Maybe there is a culmination around a tax matter, an inheritance matter, something that deals with partners' money or money that's owed. And then you're going to see on the 27th of the month, Mars is going to enter into Leo. So it will be in your 12th house for about 6 weeks. It'll actually come back later at the beginning of next year due to the retrograde. But basically this means that the energy is shifting towards more private, kind of spiritual, behind the scenes action. Spas, saunas, dance, anything that's connected to infrared light, and kind of spiritual healing is what's really recommended, and doing it in a creative way. Shamanic healing is really great with Mars. Drumming is good here in the 12th house. And you're going to see on the 28th, the sun in Libra in your second house is going to come into a trine with Uranus in your 10th. And so there is some positive, liberating energy where there could be new, professional ideas, new ways of making money, new partnerships that are kind of emerging. And then finally on the 30th, you'll see Mercury enter into Scorpio, where it's going to be joining Venus in your third house of your mind. Now, thinking deepens here, communication deepens here. And that can mean that you're looking through text more deeply, you're doing research, maybe you are, kind of putting together your tax documents already or your receipts. Maybe you're thinking about making a change or a transformation in regards to how you think, how you communicate. Maybe even it's with a vehicle, right? And so because Venus is there, I think a lot of you guys are going to be like learning how to kind of reevaluate or reassess something about your financial situation. Do I buy a car? Do I sell a car? Do I move or do I not move? Do I renegotiate something? Do I not? And I'm just going to tell you guys, because Venus is in shadow, buying cars, signing contracts, planning short distance trips, even moving, buying gadgets like cars and like anything like that. Like, be really mindful, because this is in the pre-retrograde shadow. You might buy a computer and you could get it way cheaper, a couple months from now. You could be trying to buy a watch, or you're trying to buy jewelry, or trying to buy a car, and you might feel like you went over your budget. So be very conscious about what you're spending and make sure that you're crunching those numbers and that it makes sense for your budget. So your best days this month are going to be the new moon in the 10th, because honestly, like full stop, it's in your sign. So it's in your first house, and it's going to be about you being like, okay, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. I'm going after my goals, and really use that to your best of your abilities. Then beyond that, you want to watch Mercury's soft aspects. So like the 12th when Mercury trines Pluto, the 13th when it trines Uranus, and genuinely supportive, I think, probably around the 21st when Mercury is sextiling Jupiter, okay? Difficult days are going to be, I think, the 12th when Mercury also opposes Neptune. I know it's both a blessing and a curse, where there is a bit of like a mixed energy. The 18th when Mercury opposes Saturn, where you feel like there is some restriction in some financial matters. And maybe also the 1st when you're going to see Mars that's going to come into a square with Saturn, but that's more secondary. The bottom line, though, is for Virgo and Virgo risings, that new moon in your first house, I think, is offering you a real, true personal reset. And Mercury's path is kind of keeping you on your identity, your values, and deeper communication by the end of the month. Now, the full moon is definitely going to feel a little intense. It's going to be about clearing old patterns, and I think it's around intimacy and shared energy. You really want to focus on improving what's practical this month, speaking with care, and allowing transformation where and when you're ready for it. I think you're really refining yourself when you're doing it with a lot of precision this month, and maybe journaling or kind of reflecting on some of these changes can be really powerful for you in the weeks ahead. Let's see what the tarot has to say for you for the month of September. All right, what does Virgo need to know? Perfect card for you. Love this. King of Swords. So obviously this is the element of air, right? So it can be talking about a Gemini, an Aquarius, a Libra, but I think this is about you channeling that energy and just being like very direct and like no bullshit. And I think it's great because Mars in the 12th house means you don't have to fight like a warrior. It can mean that you're fighting for things that you're most passionate about. But a new moon in your sign, I think with Mercury trining Pluto and Uranus, you have so much energy that's about getting organized, getting the job done, really knowing your worth. And I think it's going to be about really articulating yourself very well this month. Mercury is not retrograde. It's not shadow yet either. So that means you have all month to get very clear about your money, your needs, your plans, your travels. And I think that there is like a sense of confidence and really feeling kind of like in charge and learning how to embrace new unconventional ideas. That could mean at the workplace. That could also mean when it comes to your health or your money. When you catch yourself being rigid and being like, this is how I have to do it, I would encourage you to get outside of your comfort zone. With those trines to Uranus and Pluto, there can be powerful, unconventional kind of workarounds for things that could make your schedule and your job a whole lot easier. So Virgo, I hope it's a wonderful month for you guys. Don't forget to leave me comments below. Let me know what happens, how these predictions land for you throughout the month. Would love to hear how that new moon plays out for you guys too. And I'll see you guys back here in October. What's up, Libra and Libra rising? Welcome to your September 2026 horoscopes. Happy birthday if you happen to be a September Libra. I hope it's a good one for you guys. I'm excited to get into it, and obviously Libra risings, relationships are under full renovation this month. We're going to talk about why, but first we're going to take a look at the bigger picture and discuss what's going on with Venus this month. Now, both you and Taurus, and I would say Scorpio risings, really need to kind of be aware of the Venus retrograde pre-shadow, and you'll hear me talk about this month. You're going to hear me talk about the retrograde next month and really into November, and that is going to be a process where your chart ruler is actually going to be retrograding from your second house of personal style, values, resources, money into your first house of self. Okay, so it is not retrograde right now, but it is still moving through the signs, which it will retrograde back through. Now, this month, Venus is actually starting the month in Libra, so you still get to have that energy of beauty and attraction and being charming and kind of feeling like you're kind of just being blessed by the goddess until it enters into your second house of money on the 10th. So soak that up. Once Venus goes into the second house, she does like being there because this is a house that deals with luxury. It's also about beauty and like the finer things. And she is in shadow, which means that you need to be cautious and careful about aesthetic changes, haircuts, buying expensive things, clothes, jewelry, all of that stuff, because it's possible that when we get into October and November, we realize, not my style, or maybe, you know, we need to return something, or maybe we kind of overspent. So keep your receipts, keep your tags on stuff, and know that when she goes into your second house on the 10th, you're going to notice that there is this deepening focus on your resources and also your self-esteem. Now, as for other aspects, Venus will be making the very first square to Pluto in Aquarius in your fifth house of creativity, self-expression, and children. Pay attention because you'll see this again in October and also in December. Positive is that Venus is in the superior angle. So she is basically saying she is pushing for more joy, more creativity, bigger risks, bigger romantic stories. But it does look like it's going to come at some kind of financial cost. Now, you're also going to be seeing that as for where other planets are, you know, Mars is continuing to move through Cancer in your 10th house of career. It's going to be there most all of the month. That means that there's a lot of action still playing out in regards to your career, your professional reputation, your competitiveness maybe in the workspace, and just being like a busy bee. Obviously by sign, it's squaring you, so be mindful of that. And then you're going to see at the end of the month on the 27th, Mars is going to be shifting gears and going into your 11th house of friends, social groups, and allies, where I think you're going to get a much needed boost socially. Now, the other big headline is that Saturn and Neptune are still retrograde in your 7th house of relationships. So there is this great reevaluation of committed partnerships one-on-one, where your partners are, how you're connecting with them. And there is definitely going to be some stress tests that are going to come up this month in relationships. You're going to find that this is significant because these two planets are really retrograde for several months, kind of revealing to you what is real and what is kind of fantasy, while Pluto is retrograding in your 5th house of romance, creativity, children, and self-expression. Uranus will station retrograde this month, so we're going to have pretty much all of the outer planets retrograde except for Jupiter. So we're going to start to feel that slow down, and it's going to retrograde in your 9th house on the 10th, and that's going to be have you reevaluating your beliefs about the world, maybe making some changes legally or with publishing or with travel. And obviously we've got that big old full moon, which is going to be happening in your 7th house, and we're going to talk about that as well. Now, basically the month kicks off with a more kind of irritating energy. Everybody is going to be feeling this, but I think the cardinal signs, as well as I would say like my Aries, my Cancer, my Scorpio risings, maybe even my Capricorn risings are really going to be feeling this. But for Libra rising, you're going to see Mars continuing to move through your 10th house of career, work, and reputation. And it's going to come into a square with Saturn in Aries in your 7th house of relationships. So Libra, this is where your career drive, your career expectations. Maybe it's about your momentum and like wanting to get out there and maybe be competitive and like be seen, is meeting some kind of a restriction with Saturn in your relationships. And so it can be kind of threatened by your open commitments. And really this means that there needs to be better balance between your public goals and what you're doing out in the world and your relational responsibility. And you kind of have to handle this carefully. So working late, overworking, doing too much, you might have some irritated spouses or partners. It could also mean that there is some tension with your business partners or potentially with your clients. And you have to kind of create better boundaries and be mindful of where you need to be tending to people maybe a little bit better, or where you need to kind of draw the line with whether or not you can continue to partner or work with people. Now, the positive is that the same day, you're going to see that Mars in Cancer is going to be forming a sextile to Mercury, which will be in Virgo in your 12th house. And this basically means that something may be coming to some kind of conclusion in terms of the way or how that you're working. Maybe you are kind of handling this in a more private way, or you've been reflecting and you just realize that there needs to be some changes at work. And so it's good for kind of quiet strategic planning. On the 4th of the month, you're going to see that there's going to be a last quarter moon in Gemini, and you're going to see the moon is going to be moving through your 9th house, and it will be coming into a square with the sun in Virgo in your 12th. Now, this basically means that there is some release that's going on revolving around travel, maybe revolving around your beliefs or around higher learning. Then on the 10th, we're going to see a gangbuster day where there is like so many planets that are doing things at the same time. So it's a bit of a cluster, and this is where we see first Venus enter into Scorpio. So it's going into your 2nd house of money and resources, where you're deepening maybe your relationship with money, security, and self-worth. You will also see Mercury enter into Libra. So it's entering into your 1st house where you kind of have the bullhorn. This is really about kind of your thinking becoming more balanced and diplomatic and really focused on your personal presentation. And then you're going to have Uranus that is going to turn retrograde in your natal 5th house. And this is going to represent a little bit of like a change or a pivot when it comes to your beliefs. And you may feel a little restless maybe, and I think there can be some restlessness around creative projects or around children or maybe around traveling. And because Uranus is in the 9th and it's influencing the 5th, it can mean you're revising creative projects or revising things about kind of travel, education, or long distance matters. And then finally, there will be a new moon in Virgo in your 12th house. And this is going to be about setting intentions around rest, healing, and behind the scenes improvement. I personally, as a Libra rising, love to use these new moons to organize my closet, maybe to get a little bit better sleep. It's also a good time to be really reflecting on where we need to wind down and really kind of review what's happened earlier in this year and kind of reassess what we're taking with us into the new year when Libra season begins at the end of the month and what we're actually leaving behind. Now, what I like about this new moon is that it's ruled by Mercury. Mercury is in your sign, which tells me that some Libras and Libra risings, they have like a secret, or they're maybe going through some secret transformation or some physical transformation. And it's about this mind over matter situation that's taking place where you realize if you benefit your mental health or you get better sleep, it's going to improve your appearance. It can also mean that you have to be more in alignment with your intuition and know what it is that you have to kind of change. Sometimes the new moon in Virgo in the 12th house can represent a time where you know that there is one phase of your job that's kind of phasing out and there's like a new cycle that's about to begin. And it's about you not feeling bad about having to protect your space or like your peace, and like that you don't always have to get back to everybody. You don't have to respond to everyone. And it's going to be sextiling Mars in your 10th house. So it's really kind of amplifying the fact that it's almost like you're trying to get a lot of work done before you go into Virgo season, or the new moon in Virgo where, you know you're traveling, you're taking time off, you know that there is going to be some distinct kind of changes with your work or with your health or your habits, and you're preparing to kind of try to get everything done. And I think you can make a lot of headway and get a lot of work done behind the scenes as well. It doesn't have to be dramatic. All right, on the 12th of the month, you're going to see Mercury, which will be in your sign, coming into a trine with Pluto. Okay, and that means it's about powerful kind of creative communication, but it will also oppose Neptune in your 7th house of relationships. And this is where you have to be careful because there can be a lot of not knowing where you begin and relationships end. There can be a lot of projecting in relationships. There can be a lot of needing to reevaluate who you are in relationships and what you need. You'll see that theme all month long. And I feel like this is really kind of supporting deep, honest, creative, or romantic expression, and having some kind of clarity about yourself, but maybe idealizing relationships and partners, or confusion in partnerships, or needing to kind of stick up for yourself where you feel like other people aren't seeing you so clearly or supporting you the way that you need to be supported. So you need to double check your kind of relational perceptions. On the 13th, you'll see Mercury in your sign trining, trining Uranus. So it already came into a trine with Pluto. So it'll trine Uranus in your 9th, which is great for epiphanies. I think bright ideas about publishing, writing, teaching, or traveling, and progressive ideas about your direction and where you see your life going and what's going to make you happy, because that's what Uranus is about. On the 14th, you'll see the Sun in Virgo sextiling Mars in Cancer. And this is where it's kind of similar to the new moon in Virgo, where private, renewal, vitality, rest, focusing on, your healthy habits is supporting making some career changes. And so it's a good day for quiet, productive, and professional steps behind the scenes. And then on the 15th, this is like your red flag day. This is where Venus in your 2nd house is going to come into a square with Pluto in your 5th house. I think in the background, what's beneficial is that like you will see Pluto and Neptune sextile each other. So basically expect intensity between your values and your resources and that of, creative projects or maybe romantic relationships, children. There can be a lot of passion, but there can be some power struggles that can be kind of going on. And I think underneath there's this subtle alignment between relating and heartfelt expression between the sextiles from your 5th to your 7th. Intuitively, Libra, I feel like I'd be very careful with taking any financial risk right now. And I don't know if that's like in the stock market or if it's with trading or if it's with crypto or it's with like a business. I would say try to be a little bit more conservative because you are one of the signs that through the retrogrades, you can see that there can be some big financial changes. On the 17th of the month, you're going to see Chiron retrograde back into Aries. So if you're a Libra rising, that's like 27, 28, 29 degrees, you're still going to be impacted by the Chiron opposition. And basically, this is where wounds that need to be wrapped up and healed and dealt with, that's connected to partnerships or commitment, is now resurfacing to be healed. And so this is a big one, I would say, given everything that's happening in the 7th house, the Saturn-Neptune retrograde, the full moon in Aries that's coming, even the Mars-Saturn square. Now, on the 18th of the month, this is also a day that you want to watch. You're going to have Mercury in your sign coming into an opposition with Saturn in Aries in your 7th house. And Mercury deals with traveling or teaching or legal matters. It also deals with rest. And Mercury in the 1st house is like, this is what I think, this is how I feel, this is what I want. And I feel like a lot of the Libra energy is trying to be diplomatic, but it can be at what cost, right? Like almost to a fault, to a point where you'll notice you're trying to kind of partner or work with somebody so much and then like they're reluctant to like want to be receptive or want to respond or want to work with you, that it can bring something to a head when you get to the full moon. But Mercury in opposition to Saturn means that your personal expression is going to be met with some kind of restriction in partnerships and relationships. And so it's kind of like the self versus other is getting tested directly. On the same day, you're going to notice that there is a 1st quarter moon in Sagittarius. So the moon's going to be sitting in your 3rd house, coming into a square with the sun. And this basically means that you have to take action, you have to speak up, you have to communicate, and you have to express your needs. Maybe it's better you do it in writing, right? Or maybe it's better that you send it in a text or send it in an email. The 21st is a lot more expansive. Mercury will be obviously in your sign and it's going to sextile Jupiter. And this is good for a lot of optimistic, I think, personal expression and thinking, getting a lot of support from friends. It's a good time to mix and mingle or attend events or maybe try to kind of connect with your community, focusing on future goals. And it's very expansive and it's very social. On the 22nd of the month, the sun is going to enter into Libra. So a Libra season will officially begin. This is obviously the equinox here in the northern hemisphere. And so this is your 1st house. And now the sun is kind of focusing on your ascendant if you're a Libra rising. So it's strongly putting a spotlight on your identity, your appearance, your personal vitality for the month ahead. This is your season, Libra. Now be mindful that on the 25th of the month, the sun in your sign will start coming into an opposition with Neptune and Aries in your 7th house. I would go back and think about what happened in August when Venus made an opposition to Neptune. And then, when Mercury was in opposition to Neptune earlier in the month. Like there's a lot of what do I want versus how are other people showing up. And as much as I hate to say it, I feel like Saturn and Neptune retrograde in the 7th house is going to show you like where you're going to be dealing with partners that are sometimes avoidant, or they're drinking, they're drugging, they're sleeping, they don't know how to take responsibility. They don't know how to be mature. And so this is the point with the opposition where I think a lot of Libra and Libra risings are no longer going to tolerate or kind of be in a situation where they're in relationships with people who are not being a team player. They're going to start confronting it like head on and basically be like, nope, this is what I need now if you're not, kind of getting with the program. So watch for, with the sun in opposition to Neptune, clarity about the self, blurring with partners and kind of like idealizing people. You have to stay grounded and you really have to know who you are this month so you're not allowing other people to kind of take you down with them. Now on the 26th, this is the big one. This is going to be the full moon in Aries in the 7th house, where the sun in your sign will oppose the moon in Aries, and it will be in conjunction to Neptune, okay? So emotional peaks and kind of climaxes happen with Aries. You have to think about what your intentions around relationships have been for the better part of like the last 6 months. There is a emotional peak about commitment or kind of open dynamics. This could be a real decision point in a relationship. I've seen with some people when they have a full moon here, they get engaged or they get married, or they're like, that's it, I call it quit, I'm done. The positive is that when this happens, the sun in your sign is actually going to be trining Pluto. So it means that if you do make a decision to continue a relationship, to go into a relationship, to end something, you're doing it because it's really coming from what your heart is telling you is going to be best for you. Now, by the same token, this is a full moon that is going to be conjunct Neptune. So you're definitely going to see some more deceptive qualities in relationships, as much as I hate to say that. And also you're going to see this is ruled by Mars, which will be at a critical degree squaring Chiron. And so it's really kind of telling me that work pressure and work conflict can bring up a lot of relational issues. And whether you work with your spouse or it's a situation where maybe it's about your business partnerships that are really kind of receiving this tension, or if you're overworking or doing too much, it can cause a lot of stress in your committed partnerships. Then you're going to see on the 27th, Mars enters into Leo, where it'll be there for 6 weeks. And this is basically saying, okay, now the energy is shifting towards your friends, your future goals, socializing, having more confidence with groups and also with allies. So it's going to be a very dazzling next couple of weeks, I think, socially. And on the 28th, the sun in your sign is going to come into a trine with Uranus in your 9th house, which is about, sudden opportunities for travel, breakthroughs about your ideas, feeling liberated in terms of your identity and your life direction, maybe some long distance romantic opportunities or teaching opportunities. And then on the 30th, you're going to see Mercury enter into Scorpio, where it is going to really have your mind on your money, and you're really deepening your thoughts about your self-worth and your resources. It is joining Venus there. So, as we're kind of getting into the beginning of next month, these planets will eventually get ready to retrograde. So be very careful, Libra, with your personal style. I think a lot of you guys will be buying jewelry, buying clothes, making expensive purchases. And it may be things that don't actually bring you security, or things that you don't actually like. So I recommend, if you have to do anything aesthetically, if you're watching this in August, you're doing this before you get into September. And you need to really watch your budget as you're going through the month, and be mindful of just your self-esteem, and really be kind of pumping yourself up. Your best days are tricky because Venus does not get a single good aspect this month, as much as I hate to say that. So I would lean on probably the days that you're going to see Mercury or the sun trining Pluto or trining Uranus. I think that's going to be the best days for just kind of freedom and feeling like you can be more authentic. Also, I really like the days that we're going to see around the 14th, where the sun and Mars are going to sextile, because I think you can get a lot of work done behind the scenes. And maybe the 21st, when Mercury in your sign is sextiling Jupiter in your social zone. And that's probably going to be some of your better days, next to maybe the 22nd, when the sun enters into Libra. Now, the tougher days that are going to hit you this month is going to be the 15th, and that's going to be when Pluto and Venus square. So this is putting your chart ruler in direct personal friction with Pluto. And right after Venus moves into Scorpio on the 10th is when you're going to start feeling this energy. Expect this to surface around money and self-worth or power struggles in how you relate or how you create or deal with children or romance. And with Saturn and Neptune already retrograde during that full moon, I think it's going to be a close second. I think that there is a real relationship turning point that's going to come up this month. And obviously be mindful of Mars square Saturn at the beginning of the month and just honestly overworking and overlooking maybe some of your closest relationships. But the bottom line for you, Libra, is that partnerships are under this major review this month. And I think with Saturn and Neptune and the full moon activating your 7th, Venus moving into the 2nd house, which is deepening this focus on how do I feel safe, how do I feel secure, how do I feel valued, and the sun kind of coming in, maybe helping kind of restore some like personal vitality and radiance. This is a month to really know the difference between you and other people and balancing the self with others very carefully, because now it's your season. You can't overextend yourself for other people or be codependent. You have to speak your truth. You have to do it with grace and let relationships transform where they must. I think you're just learning to be a little bit more authentic in how you relate to other people and put yourself first. All right, Libra, let's see what the cards have to say for you this month. What does Libra need to know about the month of September? Oh, well, that's good. 4 of Wands. Okay, so this is like a wedding card, which is kind of funny. Weddings, birthdays, celebrations, gatherings, coming together. So it's like allowing other people to celebrate you. Which I would say anyway, having Venus in your sign, Sun in your sign, you know, it's going to be a time that's going to be about what about me? And I feel like with Mars going into your 11th house, if there has been some tension in a relationship, you're going to be leaning more on your friendships, your allies, your groups, your community, and finding ways to be able to kind of break up some of that intensity by spending time with friends and having kind of community nearby. This is also about celebrating the small wins because it's a minor card. So it might be about giving yourself credit where credit is due and giving yourself a pat on the back for reaching some of your kind of shorter goals as you're kind of working towards some of your longer term goals, which is going to be more of a focus, especially as we see stuff kind of going on with the eclipses in Leo. But say yes to the invitation. You know, it's okay to break away from working 24/7. It's okay to not feel like you have to, you know, be always kind of dealing with the drama of relationships. I think it's really important for you to have community and feel like you can be around people who are celebrating you this month. So let your friends do something for you if it's your birthday. Hopefully that's helpful, Libra. Don't forget to leave me comments below. Let me know what happens in the month ahead with this horoscope. I always get a kick out of hearing what you guys have to say, and I'll catch you guys back here in October. What's up, Scorpio and Scorpio rising? Welcome to your September 2026 horoscopes. I'm excited to talk to you guys about what's going on in the cosmos this month. Obviously, Scorpio, there is a lot happening this month. There's a lot of things happening this month. There's going to be some trines to Pluto. There's going to be some Venus action. This is a big personal power month for you. So we're going to kind of break it all down. As you know, your modern day ruler is Pluto, and he is continuing his retrograde in your 4th house of your home and your living situation in the sign of Aquarius. So this is about your emotional foundation still kind of being under construction this month and for several months until it goes direct. This is keeping you really on top of a deep review that's kind of focused on your home, your roots, and your family. While Mars is your traditional ruler, and you're actually going to see it's continuing to move through Cancer most of this month. Now, that means that there can be a lot more action when it comes to travel, education, your beliefs, publishing, anything that deals with legal matters or teachers or mentors or gurus. It can mean also that you're kind of on this personal search, right? Or there is some kind of storyline that's unfolding about your beliefs about home or family, obviously Cancer. Now, what you're going to see is that it will actually leave your 9th house and go into your 10th house. And that's going to be happening for you around the 27th. So that will set up a 6-week window then for you to really feel like you're dominating things at work. There's a lot more kind of passion and dedication, and it's just very, very busy. So I would say enjoy some free time while you have it, because I think things are going to kind of kick into overdrive professionally at the end of the month. I think that what's also interesting is that Venus is going to be entering into your sign, which is very beneficial. And honestly, she's going to spend a lot of time here, Scorpio. Positive is that Venus in the first house, you look good, people are receptive to you, you're attracting clients, you're attracting partners. There can be a lot of intimacy and kind of sexy energy here because it does rule relationships, and it's also connected to your 12th house. So you're kind of like a little bit more attractive and mysterious than usual. The downside is that Venus is in shadow. So you are one of the signs that I would say, please be very careful with your transformations this month and next month. Whether that's cosmetic surgery, changing your hair, buying all kinds of new clothes, or just adopting a new style. Most likely you'll find if you're doing that this month, even though Venus is in your sign, because it retrogrades in October and November, you may not be so crazy about what's kind of going on with the changes that you have made. That's not just with your style, it's also about your relationships, and like there can be a sense of you going into relationships and then kind of changing your mind a little bit, but more on that next month. I think that the positive is it's a strong activation personally, and you're just very much more magnetic than usual. And you're going to see Saturn and Neptune is going to continue its retrograde in your 6th house of health and work. And then Uranus will station retrograde in your 8th house. This will be on the 10th, where there can be some financial shocks and surprises. And that can be tied to joint money, partners, children, or your home. And we will also see Mercury entering into Scorpio, coming into your sign, and that's going to be on the 30th. So that's going to be really good about you embracing change, transformation, feeling really tapped in, very psychic, more than usual, and also really being able to read the room, or kind of feeling like you're able to have some extra, perception, especially when it comes to your friends or when it comes to your joint finances. Now, with that being said, here's how the month is actually going to be moving, and I'm going to be going in order of the transits. So on September 1st, honestly, red flag day, pull out your marker, circle the first. I would actually say be advised from about August the 30th through, I would say, September the 2nd, okay? That several day window, you are going to have Mars, your chart ruler, forming a square with Saturn in Aries. And unfortunately, Saturn is the superior planet. It's basically throwing a lasso around Mars, and it's saying, nope, you can't do that. So you will have delays, or you will have stalls with trying to move, trying to, sign legal documents, trying to travel. Maybe you feel like you can't, make any headway with education, or maybe you are dealing with a health or a scheduling issue or a pet issue that's inhibiting you from being able to travel, and you're going to get a little agitated. Mars also rules your body, so it's like pushing through and forcing yourself to travel if you're not feeling well, or forcing yourself to go to work, or forcing yourself to go to school may not equate to it being the best for your health. And so what you'll find is that your drive also around your beliefs or expansion is meeting restriction when it comes to your health habits or your daily routine. This is about vision versus practical demands. And I think you have to pace yourself, because there can be a sense of you being like, I can do it all. And I would be like, no, your schedule or your body is saying you cannot. You need to actually slow down. What's positive is that the same day, you're actually going to see Mercury, which is going to be in Virgo, coming into a sextile with Mars in your 9th house. So it makes me feel like a friend, or maybe a conversation you have with an ally, or just being more future oriented, supports action around beliefs and learning. And it might be like you being like, yeah, maybe it's not smart to take the trip right now. Like, I'll do it in the future, or a friend that's giving you some kind of feedback about some kind of dilemma that you're dealing with, and they might help you kind of navigate it. On the 4th of the month, you're going to see this is the last quarter moon in Gemini. So the moon is going to be coming into a square with the sun in Virgo from your 8th house. And this is very Scorpio energy. It's basically saying you have to release something around shared resources or intimacy or transformation. Now, on the 10th of the month, there is like this big cluster. So there's a ton of planetary kind of energy that's happening all at one time. The big one is that Venus is entering into Scorpio. So it's going to be going into your 1st house, which basically means, like I said, you're going to be more kind of attractive. You're a little bit more sexy and sultry than usual. You can start busting out in the fall now, your mesh leggings. You can be wearing, your sheer kind of like black long sleeve stuff, all of your witchy things that you guys like. Maybe a little too soon for the leather, but I think a lot of you guys are going to be really stoked to be able to start wearing your fall attire. Now, I think what's interesting is that your personal magnetism, your values are all intensifying. You are going to get some stares where people are going to just be like gawking at you, so enjoy it. I think that I would have this strong focus on your identity and your self-worth, and you're kind of looking at that through a deeper lens. And Mercury is going to be then entering into Libra in your 12th house, which is really going to activate your dreams. I think your intuition, thinking turns more private and reflective, and you're more focused on like this subconscious kind of balance. And Mercury in Libra in the 12th house reminds me of like pillow talk. So there's going to be a lot of like chit-chatting like in relationships, you know, kind of behind the scenes. Uranus will also station retrograde in your 8th house that day. So there can be a bit of like a financial unexpected curveball or a financial swing. Maybe there is a sudden insight, or there is going to be some restlessness around shared resources or intimacy, or just a surprise, you know, ending. I think deep mental patterns might shift here. And, you know, the new moon in Virgo is going to happen also, and it's landing in your 11th house, where you're supposed to be setting intentions revolving around friendship, your future goals, belonging, your long-term vision. I like this because it's going to be sextiling Mars, which is your chart ruler in the 9th. So I could see some like Scorpio and Scorpio risings that are trying to plan future travel with friends. And even though they hit the square to Saturn and they can't do it now, they're like, well, let's plan it in the future, you know, or they're wanting to maybe travel and do some lecturing or some teaching. And they're trying to figure out how to kind of align that with like a group or with like a social connection. On the 12th of the month, you're going to see Mercury will trine Pluto. This is a good day for you because Mercury is going to be in your 12th house. It's trining Pluto. Intuitively, I feel like this can mean that there is a very strong intuitive spark, and that you have a dream, there's a sign, there's an omen that you're like, something is about to change with my family, something's about to change in my life, maybe with my living situation. And I think that's going to continue, honestly, until Uranus is in a trine with Mercury as well. So it's going to be a couple days where it's like changes the name of the game, and it's about just communicating and accepting that, you know, change can be good. I think that the only challenge here is that while Mercury is trining Pluto, which is good for you, it's actually opposing Neptune. And this is where you have to be kind of careful this month, Scorpio, because there's a lot of things that come up about overworking, doing too much, you know, Saturn and Neptune retrograde in your 6th, where there's some mental restlessness. You're not getting enough downtime. You know, you're not having enough time to kind of feel like you can play or be social. And I think that it's very likely that there is like this powerful internal insight, but you need to take clarity in private and you need to reflect. Otherwise, there's going to be some confusion about your health or your work. And you have to stay really grounded when it comes to your self-care and like be very diligent about that this month. Now, on the 13th, then Mercury trines Uranus. So it's kind of continuing that intuitive spark. Unexpected breakthroughs in hidden or intimate matters may come to light, and it may be, you know, kind of like conversations that's about getting clarity about joint money or about inheritance, taxes, also about intimacy. And then on the 14th, you're going to see the sun sextile Mars, and this is really good for you because it's saying that there is a spotlight on either your goals, your friends, or your allies that's supporting your actions when it comes to education, when it comes to travel, when it comes to publishing, expansion. And it's a good day for collaboration and also just kind of taking the first visionary steps forward. On the 15th, this is the red flag day, Venus square Pluto. And then at the same time, you're going to have Neptune sextile Pluto. So your ruler squaring Pluto basically means that, this Venus squaring Pluto in your 1st house means that, you know, your intensity is really kind of meeting head on with the need to change and transform something at home. It's very charged, okay? So there's going to be a little bit of like, okay, Scorpio, are you really willing to take on this new home or family change? Are you willing to transform something about the way you relate to your family or the way that you look at home and family? And are you receptive to making these changes? Underneath, I think with the Neptune-Pluto sextile, there is this alignment between daily improvement and also emotional security that's going to be kind of tied to this. And then on the 17th, you're going to see Chiron retrograde out of your 7th house and back into your 6th house in the sign of Aries. And this is interesting because it's definitely going to bring up for you any unresolved health issues, any wounds that's connected to service, being of service, your health, maybe your daily habits, things that can surface for healing. And I'm just going to tell you, Neptune's retrograde there, Saturn's retrograde there, you're going to have a full moon there. So it's really kind of saying to Scorpio, hey, like, how are you doing with your habits? Like, are you falling back and you're not going to the gym? Like, you know, are you not being good with your eating habits? Like, what's happening? And you need to be on top of it because some of these wounds can come up. And Aries is like migraines, inflammation, allergies, hitting your head, bumping your head, anything that deals with, yeah, pretty much inflammation. And diet is like a huge theme here. And then what you're going to see is on the 18th, Mercury in Libra in your 12th will oppose Saturn in your 6th. And this is about private thinking, meeting restriction in work or health routines. This is serious internal conversations about responsibility. And that could be at work, that could be in relationships, that could be to yourself. And that same day, we're going to have the first quarter moon in Sagittarius in your second, sitting in your second house. That's going to be coming into a square with the sun. And it tells me you're going to have to take some kind of action financially, or you're going to have to stand up for, you know, your self-worth. The 21st is a little bit better. It's more expansive. We will see Mercury in Libra coming into a sextile with Jupiter in Leo. So this is optimistic, intuitive, private thinking that's expanding your career and your public goals. Quiet, strategic expansion. Good day to like maybe do some brainstorming about how to make some changes professionally, and maybe where your intuition or your dreams are influencing some of these changes. And then you're going to see on the 22nd, the sun enters into Libra in your 12th house, where it will stay for a couple of weeks. This is the time, Scorpio, where now planets going through your 12th house, they're going to represent, okay, what do I hold on to before I move into the next solar year? What do I release? And the 12th house is bad habits or self-sabotage, isolation, healing, you know, private spaces. And so there is this need to retreat a little bit and kind of focus on your private life, and you need more rest, and you're going to need, you know, more recuperation. And there's like some subconscious patterns that are coming up for reevaluation. On the 25th, you will see the sun in Libra in your 12th, opposing Neptune in Aries in your 6th. And you have to be careful here because it's about getting clarity in a private way or in private realms that's causing some confusion around your work or your health. And you might be like, why am I having these weird reactions? What's going on? And I'd be like, you need sleep, you need rest, you know, you're not taking enough downtime. And so you can just be feeling wiped, and you really need to prioritize realistic routines. Followed by the 26th, where you're going to have a full moon, which is going to be in your 6th house of health and habits, which is bringing this culmination around your workspace, your schedule, your health, your habits, your routine. And it could be a real physical well-being check-in. Same day, you're going to see that the sun is actually going to be trining Pluto. So it's giving you, I think, this constructive intensity that's more internal, and it's about emotional transformation. This is a full moon that will be very close to Neptune. So I think this is going to be about like maybe the health of your children, or the health that's kind of connected to your pets are getting highlighted in some way. Some of you guys might change jobs or change schedules, or there may be a sense of you needing to step up and kind of pick up the slack at work if somebody else is sick. And it's ruled by Mars, your ruler as well, which is going to be in hard angle to Chiron. And this is telling me that no matter how bad you want to travel, you want to break away, you want to do something, you're like, I have too much work on my plate. So really watch your health, I think, with that aspect. On the 27th, Mars goes into Leo, and it'll start its 6-week kind of run where it's going to be really helping you, I think, get a lot done. I think that unlike where Mars has been squaring planets in your 6th house and you have felt maybe a little defeated, now you're going to have a lot of trines, okay? We'll get into it next month, but Mars is going to start, once you get to the end of the month, it's going to start opposing Pluto. And this is going to be where you're like, okay, work is gearing up, but there is some big changes and transformations emotionally or at home. And so it feels like you have to put on your game face, even though there can be some uncomfortable things happening in your private life. Nevertheless, Mars does well in the 10th house. It's about feeling like your career and your public visibility is going to strengthen. And it's also about gaining confidence in a professional way. Just watch for the competitive behavior. On the 28th, the sun in Libra in your 12th house will come into a trine, over here with Uranus in your 8th. This is, I think, liberating you, maybe in a relationship sense. Maybe there's intimate breakthroughs, maybe there's psychological breakthroughs. Maybe it's connected to deep transformation or, financial support or other people's money. And then on the 30th, Mercury moves into your sign where you get the bullhorn and you're a little bit more outspoken and you're communicating. It's about communicating your goals and talking to your community, your friends. It's also about kind of really deeply intuiting into what you know needs to change and transform. Now, at this point, both Mercury and Venus are in Scorpio, and these are two planets that will retrograde over the next several weeks as we get into October and November into Scorpio. So it's like you can embrace the change now, or you can wait until it happens. And I would say, I hope you embrace it. This is where your thinking becomes deeply personal. You're very much more investigative than normal, and also very much focused on identity. Now, your best days, because you have two rulers to track, is probably going to be the 12th when Mercury trines Pluto and the 26th when the Sun trines Pluto. Both, very much flatter personal reinvention, change, transformation, and positive changes on the home front. And then on the 14th, when you see the Sun sextiles Mars, and obviously when Venus enters your sign on the 10th, and when Mars enters your 10th house on the 27th. Those are all going to be, kind of like stellar days. Now, the tougher days I think that you're going to experience is the first, when Mars and Saturn square. And I want to tell you, August 30th through about September 2nd is when you're going to feel this. Applying for schools, trying to maybe travel for, for pleasure, maybe trying to, deal with health matters or booking travel. Like, these things aren't going to go well. So watch for those days. And this is also going to be another transit that you're going to have to watch for. And this is going to be on the 15th when Venus squares Pluto. Just watch for the power struggles around your home and your family. And really it's about you having the ability to change some things that are kind of going on. And it might be relating to family karma. Now, the bottom line, Scorpio, is that Venus and later Mercury entering your first house is really going to intensify your personal presence. And I think that's really positive. I also think that that full moon is really going to clarify for you a lot in regards to your work and your health patterns. And when Mars moves into your 10th house, you got to channel that energy into your career visibility and transform what's ready to transform. I'm going to tell you, October and November with those retrogrades, you have time to kind of embrace that physical transformation. Just know that you have to take one step forward at a time, one day at a time. And I think you're really going to be focusing on reclaiming your personal power, I think, from the inside out. So very powerful month for you guys. Let's see what the cards have to say for my Scorpio and Scorpio risings. Interesting, Four of Swords. Okay, so to me, this is feeling like the planet's going through Libra. It's kind of saying and I'm sure those of you guys who are astrologically savvy, you've looked at October and November and you've seen oh shit, Mars is going to oppose Pluto. There's going to be some work stuff and some home stuff, and Venus is going to retrograde, Mercury is going to retrograde. I'm a Scorpio. I'm not a Scorpio rising, but I'm ready for it because I know it's going to be a lot of changes. Take the rest when you can. Take a break. And I think that some of the oppositions between your first and your sixth house are going to show you that it can't be all work and no rest. It's not about play so much, it's about rest. And I think that the Four of Swords, because this is traditionally my funeral card, or it's a card that's about being okay, I have to let the situation lie, there's nothing I can do about it, is really what's kind of coming up for you, that there may be some things that you're just it can wait, and I can't override my health or my sanity, for things that I just literally, have very little control over. And knowing when to kind of throw on the brakes and be I'm just going to, take some time to myself and really reevaluate before I move forward, especially when it comes to what is sustainable, right? I think there's going to be a lot of, is this sustainable, and what needs to kind of be rearranged this month. So get rest when you can, learn to let certain situations go, especially if you feel like you don't have any control. And I will catch you guys back here next month in the month of October. What's up, Sag and Sag rising? Welcome to your September 2026 horoscopes. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm excited to be back with you today. Obviously, you know that you're ruled by Jupiter. And I'm going to tell you that Jupiter is parked in your 9th house. It's going to be there for some time. It's not really doing anything. And actually, this month, it's going to be the only outer planet that's going to be direct. So I think Sagittarius are going to feel like they have a little bit of a superpower. that some of the other signs are kind of lacking. Now, obviously, as Jupiter moves through your ninth house, there is this huge focus on growth and vision and obviously on travel, education, all of that stuff. And I'm sure some of you guys are still coming off of the high in this last month where we saw Jupiter and Saturn trining. So if you happen to have any planets in the mid degrees of Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising, Jupiter is still trining you. Now, the bigger picture outside of that is, it might mean that you're still in this process of thinking big, or you're asking yourself, why am I doing this? Or why do I believe these things? Or why am I going, in the direction that I'm going in? And I would say sit with that for a couple months until Jupiter is retrograde. But besides that, we have Mars that is continuing to move through Cancer in your 8th house. I know it's crabby. There is a feeling of having to do a lot of emotional and psychological and financial work here. But the positive thing is that it's actually going to leave your 8th house later in the month. And on the 27th, it's going to go into your 9th house. And finally, I think those of you guys who have been wanting to travel may actually feel like you get the opportunity to do so or to plan that. You're also going to see Saturn and Neptune is going to continue its retrograde in the sign of Aries in your 5th house, where you're still reevaluating creativity, dating, children, self-expression. And you're also going to continue to watch Pluto retrograde in your 3rd house, where there is a reevaluation of how you communicate, your mindset, what you're learning, how you get around town. What you do want to watch for this month, though, Sagittarius, is that Uranus is going to retrograde in your 7th house. So if you happen to have anything, I would say, 4, 5, 6 degrees of Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this retrograde might throw you for a bit of a spin because it is opposing you. So there can be some wild kind of reversals, changes, restlessness in relationship land. So if you're wondering, like, what is going on with this craziness with my partners or my love life? Well, there's your answer. You'll also see that there's going to be a full moon that's going to be landing in your 5th house this month, which will be friendly for Sagittarius. So there can be some big turning points in regards to your love life, creative projects, children, or anything about creativity. All right, so that was the bigger picture. Let's zoom in. Let's talk about what's going to be happening day by day, basically throughout the month. And the truth is that the month kicks off with a rather uncomfortable energy. We are going to be seeing Mars, which will be in Cancer in your 8th house of intimacy, other people's money, resources, coming into a square with Saturn in Aries in your 5th. Your drive maybe around shared resources or intimacy is going to hit a bit of a snag, and it's like conflict in creativity or romance. And maybe part of you wants this deep merging, but it's a little bit too deep in terms of merging, or, being kind of vulnerable. And, there is this need to really focus on self-expression and pacing yourself when it comes to kids, pacing yourself when it comes to dating, pacing yourself when it comes to investments. Be very cautious here. Don't take any unnecessary kind of like financial risk is my advice. And because Mars is your 12th house lord and it's connected to your 5th, there can be some unexpected kind of rumbles that can come up with younger people or potentially with romantic partners. And it can be over money, it can be over shared resources, it can be over vulnerability. Same day though, we will see Mercury, which is going to be in Virgo in your 10th house, sextiling Mars. So this tells me that there's some career thinking that's supporting action and change revolving around shared resources. So really good for strategic kind of conversations at work and budgeting. And then you will see on the 4th of the month, a last quarter moon in Gemini. So the moon's going to be in Gemini, squaring the sun in Virgo. I don't think you're going to like this. I think the mutable square is going to get you a little ornery. I think that, you're releasing something around relationships and one-on-one partnerships. So it could be business relationships, clients, therapists, spouses. There's going to be some kind of like tiff that's going to happen where you're going to feel like, no, I got to shake this person loose. And then on the 10th, there is a massive cluster of transits that are going to happen all at one time. So number 1, Venus is going to enter into Scorpio, and she's going to be moving into your 12th house. Basically, the 12th house is deepening romantic connections in private. It can also mean that there is more spiritual kind of behind the scene things that are going on. Venus deals with your health, work, and habits. It's also connected to your friends. And so naturally, you may feel like a little less social here, or Maybe you're kind of doing some spiritual healing, or maybe you are looking at, kind of reflecting on your work or your health or your habits in some way. Venus is actually in shadow here, so it means that she will retrograde actually in October and in November from your 12th to your 11th house. So you will have time to feel like you're coming up from air and you're being a little bit more social. I just don't think you're going to feel it at the beginning of the month. On the 10th, we're also going to see Mercury entering into Libra, where there's more communication with friends, allies, networks, parties, socializing. You can meet people through social connections. It can also be about strengthening the connection that you have to your community. And thinking turns towards kind of like balance in friendships and future goals. And then Uranus is going to station retrograde, and that's going to be in your 7th house, where sudden twists of fate in relationships, maybe sudden insights or restlessness around commitment can come up. And I would expect the unexpected in relational developments. I think that I would also pay attention to the new moon in Virgo, where this is about planting new seeds in your 10th house of career, ruled by Mercury. So it's in your 11th. So it looks like you're like reaching out to your community to talk about changes that you're going through professionally. So you might be making announcements or talking to your friends about it. And it's also sextiling Mars, and it is talking about some of these changes being more emotionally based or psychologically based or financially based. And I would set practical intentions around career, public image, and professional growth. This is like great. I mean, this is like finally you get a new moon here without the South Node, where I know a lot of Sag risings have been burnt out with work and there's been too much responsibility, and you're still going to have a Mars retrograde and an eclipse there next year. But I would say right now, if your goal is to have more time with your friends or more time outside of work, I would say try to factor that into your intentions under the new moon. On the 12th, Mercury in your 11th house will trine Pluto in your 3rd, which is great for communicating, newsletters, networking with people, maybe planning travel. But it is going to be opposing Neptune in your 5th house in Aries. So it's almost like group thinking supports deep, honest, or social or intellectual changes. And there's going to be a need to have better clarity in groups because it can kind of blur with your own personal kind of like vision or creativity, or your children or your love life in some way. So you have to stay very grounded in your social plans because it looks like you may not be able to do everything. Then on the 13th, Mercury will trine Uranus in your 7th house, where there could be sudden connections, sudden romantic connections, maybe feedback you're getting from friends about your relationship, and maybe unexpected progressive ideas about how to navigate relationships, or, maybe there's some changes in your social circle happening. On the 14th, the Sun, which will be in Virgo, will sextile Mars, and there is a lot of career vitality that's kind of coming up. It's supporting making changes, making financial changes, taking action around shared resources. Good for productive, professional kind of change, even though there is a little bit of intensity with Mars. And then on the 15th, you're going to see Venus in your 12th house of behind the scenes, spirituality, self-sabotage, coming into a square with Pluto. Ooh, you got to be careful here. I think this is where kind of private intensity is meeting deep communication themes, and there is a Pluto-Neptune sextile, so like underneath that intensity, there could be a subtle alignment between heartfelt expression and mental insight. Venus-Pluto square, we see jealousy, we see conflict, we see people who feel deceived, or, like people who have been like kind of like done wrong. And to me, it feels like it could be about a conversation that you overhear with friends at work. Maybe you're, reading a partner's text message and like, you're like, who is that you're talking to? And like, there can be some like craziness that can come from that. And also you can get in your head a bit about, what are people thinking about me? Or, like just really kind of feeling like it's mentally kind of wearing on you, where there can be some obsession and things that are like not healthy. So you need to watch out for that. On the 17th, we will see Chiron retrograde back into Aries, where Chiron's going to leave Taurus and it's going to go into your 5th house, where you're finishing up healing any wounds revolving around children, your inner child, self-expression, creativity, romance, and it's all going to surface for healing. And I would be like art therapy, painting, dancing, creating, all of that stuff is what you really want to work on healing. And then on the 18th, You will see Mercury in your 11th house of friends, opposing Saturn in your 5th house of romance, children, and creativity. I get the vibe that group talk is going to meet some kind of restriction, and it might be like it's a sense of you being like, I want to share something I've created with my friends, and like you don't get a positive response, or you don't get the support you're looking for, and like a friendship is tested in some way. On the same day, you have the first quarter moon in Sagittarius, so the moon is going to be squaring the sun. So it means that it's a strong day actually for you to kind of like be assertive when it comes to the next steps that you have to take. And it's all connected to the new moon that you started in your career zone. So it's like you have to go after it. And it may mean that you feel like you're creating and you're like, I don't know if people are going to support what I'm doing, but I'd be like, no, do it anyway. You know, don't always be caring about what other people think. Continue to create. On the 21st, we are going to see a positive aspect involving your ruler. Mercury in your 11th house of friends and allies will sextile Jupiter in your 9th house of travel. And basically this means that, hey, there can be optimistic group thinking. It's supporting travel, it's supporting education, it's expansive, it's visionary energy. Wonderful time to plan travel with friends. It's a good time to reconnect with friends, maybe to send out a newsletter, send out invitations, go to a party, throw a party, you know, that kind of stuff would be good. And then on the 22nd, the sun is going to enter into Libra, where for several weeks it's going to highlight your social zone, and you're focusing on friendships and also your future hopes and goals. On the 25th, you're going to see that the sun here will oppose Neptune in your 5th house. And this can be a little tricky because there is a sense of needing to be with your friends and your groups, but you're kind of like feeling like you're not being seen, or you're not getting recognized, or maybe there's some kind of idealizing somebody romantically or in a friendship way. I would say stay realistic about your friendships and your romantic relationships, and like prioritize your own personal joy. And then on the 26th of the month, you're going to have a full moon in Aries, and this is going to be in your natal 5th house. Interesting, because Aries is friendly for you, right? But it's going to be smack dab between Neptune and Saturn. So this is about some kind of creative thing that's coming to fruition, or, you know, maybe it's like finally culminating, and that could be a romantic relationship, a pleasure project, something involving children, pregnancy, you know, taking risks, expressing yourself. And this is something that you planted seeds around 6 months ago. I'm not crazy about the conjunction to Saturn and Neptune, honestly, because I feel like it could bring up some family drama where your inner child is like kind of crying out for help. I also know that it's ruled by Mars, which is going to be in the later degrees of your 8th house, and it's going to be squaring Chiron. So it's going to be like maybe where there's some wounding revolving around feeling like you can't travel, or you can't kind of connect with a younger person or a romantic person. And you're going to see on the I would say the 5th house, there can be an emotional peak about joy and love. And like for some of you guys, it can be about pregnancy, or things connecting to your children. On the 27th, Mars breaks into Leo, which is more friendly for you guys. And it means that there's more action in regards to traveling, education, shifts in your belief system, feeling a little bit more wanderlust. And like Mars is in the same house as Jupiter. So I think that for a lot of you guys, it's really giving you the opportunity to kind of expand and have more confidence, maybe enthusiasm in these areas. On the 28th, the sun in Libra will come into a trine with Uranus, and that means that it's giving you the opportunity to kind of have a little bit of like a break. You're feeling liberated socially. You can connect with people. There's new friends, new relationship opportunities, and new ideas, and you're very connected in partnerships. And then on the 30th of the month, Mercury is going to join Venus and enter into Scorpio in your 12th house, where your 7th house ruler and your 10th house ruler is going to be in the 12th. So there's like a lot of need to rest, recalibrate, kind of reevaluate. And your thinking is very much deepening in private, and it's in a very kind of spiritual territory. This is an area also where both Mercury and Venus will retrograde. You will see this in the next month or so. So if there's any secrets in love, it's going to come out. If there's any blockages karmically in love and relationships, I think it's going to be dealt with. And I will just say to my Sag rising, sometimes it can be about self-sabotage that can be going on here, where you're keeping yourself from being able to connect with people romantically or kind of socially. So just some food for thought. Your best days is going to be, I think, September 21st. That's the only time that you see something positive happening with Jupiter. So this is when Mercury and Jupiter are going to sextile each other. Do something social, plan some travel, see your friends, you know, connect with them. And I would also say the 27th of September, when Mars goes into the same house where Jupiter is. And that's real fuel that's added to, you know, your ruler's fire. And then September 14th, I would say, is like a secondary day. The tough days, you know, so the good news is that nothing is squaring, opposing, or making any nasty aspects to Jupiter. So you actually kind of get off scot-free for the most part. So nothing is hitting your ruler directly. But with that being said, Mars square Saturn, I think, will impact everybody on the 1st. And that's hitting your 5th and your 8th house. And that full moon in your 5th house is going to be very, very close to Saturn and Neptune, which are retrograde. So there can be a sense of maybe there being some like expectations when it comes to romance or when it comes to a creative project or something that it culminates, but it's like, oh, it was not exactly what I thought it was going to be. So you need to really take off the rose-colored glasses when it comes to dealing with romantic partners, or there can be a need to really tend to your inner child here, or your own children if you have kids, and there could be something that you didn't know that's kind of going on, okay? But bottom line, Sag, I feel like, you know, Jupiter in your 9th is great. You're still coming off of that high from the trine to Saturn last month. I think that the full moon is really clarifying what is actually going to bring you joy and what you actually love. And yeah, Uranus retrograding in your 7th house is going to rewire something about how you relate, but I think it's more about other people acting crazy, not so much you. And then when Mars and Jupiter are in the same house, you want to lean into growth, learning, adventure, and there's going to be this renewed fire that's going to kind of show up. So stay open to unexpected partnership shifts. Maybe, you know, protect your kind of creative sense of self, and just know that you're really expanding and you're becoming even more authentic as the year goes on. So let's ask the cards. What do we need to tell the Sag and Sag rising crew about what is going on in the month of September? What do they need to know? Oof, the 8 of Swords. To me, this feels like very like Mercury and Venus in the 8th house. And, you know, one thing I will say, especially for those of you guys who are Sag rising, Sag suns that listen to this content, some of you guys may have Venus, you know, you may have Venus, or you may have Mercury in Scorpio, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. The 8 of Swords talks about feeling stuck and not knowing how to get out of a situation, okay, kind of being in your own head. And in the traditional Rider-Waite, you can see that she's surrounded by water, so there's like a lot of emotions here. Her hands are free, but her eyes are tied. So it's kind of like you going, I just don't know how to get out of this relationship. I just don't know how to like quit this person. I just don't know how to get out of my own way. And it's like, you do, you just don't want to do it, you know, or you don't know how to do it. And I think that this is going to be a process that a lot of you guys are going to be going through the better part of the next couple months, just due to the nature of like the Venus and the Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. I would say take note of where you're isolating yourself, or you're maybe stunting your ability to connect with other people, or where you're hiding away, or there is a sense of you not doing something productive with that time. There's nothing wrong with taking time and, you know, having time to heal and, you know, kind of getting away from the hustle and bustle, but in a healthy way, and really reassessing and reanalyzing, you know, am I doing this in a way that's productive, or am I kind of sulking, or am I telling myself I'm stuck, but I'm not really trying to figure out solutions? That's what I would kind of watch out for this month. And I hope it's a good month for you guys. So let me know what happens. Don't forget to leave me your comments below. I love hearing how the month plays out for you guys, and I'll catch you guys back here in October. What's up, Capricorn and Capricorn rising? Welcome to your September 2026 overview. I'm excited to talk to you guys about what's happening for the month ahead. Obviously, Cap rising, your foundations are getting like this full restructure this month. We're going to talk all about that. And you guys are having that Mars-Saturn square. So get your helmets ready, especially I would say August 30th through about September 2nd. It can be a little bit of like a rock'em sock'em time. But the bigger picture here is that Saturn is continuing his retrograde in your 4th house. So he is still reevaluating, reassessing, pulling up all the floorboards, making all the necessary changes when it comes to restructuring the foundation of your life. Now, this could mean it's about your home, your family, your emotional foundations. That is going to continue as you know, Saturn retrogrades. And this keeps the pressure and rebuilding focused squarely on your private life and your roots. So whatever you're going through, it's not very public. Now, Mars is sitting in Cancer in your 7th house of relationships, and it will be there most of the month, which for some of you guys either brings the action, brings the passion, brings the excitement in relationships. For others, it's a little irritating because you feel like other people are kind of selfish, or they're moving too quickly, or there's like too much kind of action going on with other people. And what you guys want to watch out for is on the 27th, Mars is actually going to be leaving your 7th house of relationships and going into your 8th house, which is going to be more about passion, sensuality, partners, money, things that are connected to debt, inheritance, that kind of stuff. And like bills come due. So there's definitely gonna be a lot of financial stuff that's gonna happen there. Pluto continues his retrograde in your 2nd house of money and values. Neptune is continuing his retrograde alongside Saturn in your 4th house of home and family. And Uranus is going to be turning retrograde on the 10th in your 6th house of health, habits, work, and routine. So, oh my gosh, like all the outer planets except for Jupiter are going to be retrograde. And I've been telling everybody as we get into the fall of this year, we're going to be seeing, Venus go retrograde, Mars is going to go into shadow. It's like almost like the end of the year, everything comes to a grinding halt. So let's talk about what's happening throughout the month. And I got to be honest, you are on my list for one of the people that really needs to be mindful of the beginning of the month. So like I said, August 30th through September 2nd, you're going to be seeing Mars moving through your 7th house of open enemies, legal matters, relationships, clients, your marketplace, coming into a square with Saturn in Aries. So let's talk positive, okay? Positive is that Saturn is in the superior angle, which basically means somebody's going to come for you. They're going to try to start some shit. And you're going to be like, nope, that's not what I'm doing. I'm staying here, or I'm choosing my family, or I'm staying at home, and the challenge here is that Mars is influencing Saturn. So it's debilitated also in Cancer, and Saturn is debilitated in Aries. So like the only thing you have going for you is the fact that you're in the superior angle. So you can say no if relationships are getting a little pushy, or if there is something that's moving too quickly in a relationship. With that being said, this is where partnership drive is meeting some kind of restriction at home or emotional foundations. And it's about relating, versus kind of private security and like balancing things carefully. I can only wrap on my experience with this square. And I can tell you, like, I have Saturn natally in the 4th house. I think about whenever I have Mars going through my 7th house, it's always about like a relational dilemma that's coming up that's somehow connected to either where I live or my family. And sometimes it's pushing me to finally confront some of these family karmic themes and like doing it through a relationship in some way. So it doesn't have to be all bad, but like just don't rush. Same day, Mercury is going to sextile Mars. So you'll see Mercury in your 9th house of travel, beliefs, legal matters, sextiling Mars. And this is good for, really getting down to details with your beliefs and expansive thinking. And it's supporting action in a partnership. So it's good for like visionary relational conversations, maybe coming up with some solutions where it's not about moving, it's about traveling, or where you're getting some legal advice about, a relationship or a home or a property matter. And then on the 4th, you're going to see the last quarter moon in Gemini. So the moon's going to be in Gemini in your 6th, squaring the sun in your 9th. This is releasing something, I think, revolving around work, health, and also your daily routines, or kind of changing something about your schedule. And then on the 10th, we have like a cluster of a bunch of things happening at one time. So number 1, Venus is going to enter Scorpio. And when Venus enters Scorpio, she's going to spend a great deal of time here because next month she'll retrograde. But your 11th house is your friends, your allies, your future goals, your groups. So there can be a sense of really kind of focusing on your connection socially and some of your friendships. And Mercury is going to enter Libra, where it's going to be lighting up your professional zone, where it's about being heard and making statements and communicating, and really feeling like you can do business and you can there's a lot of hustle and bustle here, which is good. And then you're going to see on the 10th, you're also going to have Uranus station retrograde in your 6th house of work, health, and habits. So there could be a sudden pivot in your schedule, your work, a job change, a change with an employee, or a change maybe that's happening with an assistant of some kind. And then that will bring up some restlessness around work or your health or your habits. And maybe practical patterns are kind of shifting more internally. And then we've got a new moon, which is going to be in Virgo in your 9th house, fellow sister earth sign. So it's friendly for you. So you can plant seeds revolving around legal matters, publishing, traveling, going back to school, ceremonies. This is ruled by Mercury. Mercury's in your 10th. So some of you guys might be like, oh, I have to travel for work, or I'm going back to school, or I'm getting a certification, or I'm doing a training. It's also sextiling Mars. So there's some kind of support here that's coming from a partnership about some of your travel goals or some shifts in your beliefs, okay? Now, let's see, on the 12th, you'll see Mercury in your 10th, trining Pluto in your 2nd. I like that day for you. Because it means that there can be some powerful conversations and negotiations that can totally change and transform your finances in a good way. Only hang up is that Mercury is going to be opposing Neptune in your 4th house. So it tells me that maybe you're so business focused. Sometimes you're not seeing everything so clearly at home, or you're like overlooking missed phone calls from your family or your parents, or like your siblings are calling you and you're like, not right now, I'm at work. And there can be like a deep transformation around money and your career, and the powerful resource shifts, but there's also a need to get clarity about your career because there can be some confusion about how that impacts your home or your living situation. So stay grounded about your living situation and like what you can actually, make happen at work. Now on the 13th, Mercury then trines Uranus in your 6th house. So this is good for coming up with solutions, progressive ideas that's going to kind of support your professional life in a practical way. So it may mean that you're like, I'm hiring somebody, or I'm changing jobs, or I've come up with like a solution to kind of navigate some of these scheduling issues. And on the 14th, the sun will sextile Mars. So this is about really a lot of get up and go energy, maybe traveling with a partner, making plans to travel, really feeling like it's good for growth oriented, kind of relating to other people. And on the 15th, you're going to see Venus and Scorpio in your 11th house come into a very first of 3 squares with Pluto. Now, I would watch this because Venus rules your career. It also is connected to your love life or romance and creativity. And the fact that Venus is going to square Pluto means there could be some intensity revolving around your finances and your friendships or your values. And the same day, we will see that Neptune will sextile Pluto. So, powerful themes around social resources, connections, who helps you kind of get places. But underneath that, there is like a subtle alignment between emotional security and material resources that are supporting you. Most likely, some of you guys will see there will be some changes in some friendship groups that are going to be happening throughout the next couple months. And you might just be reevaluating, like, who do I want to invest my time into? Who do I value? Who do I see eye to eye with? And like, you can see a little bit of back and forth with a friendship. And then on the 17th, Chiron is going to retrograde back into Aries. So it'll leave your 5th house and go into your 4th house. And if you're a Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising, I would say 27, 28, 29 degrees, you're still under a Chiron square. So this basically means that you're feeling the wounds that are kind of coming up again that are needing to finally be kind of handled, revolving around your home situation, your living situation, maybe your family. And this is significant given Saturn's already there and he's retrograde. Also Neptune is there and he's retrograde. So it's bringing you back home to that. And then on the 18th, this is another red flag day. You're going to see Mercury in your career zone opposing Saturn in your home zone. So this is where career talks are great, but they're meeting some kind of restriction revolving around your home life where you're like, I have to work from home. Can I Zoom instead of going to the meeting? And trying to find a way to balance, some home restriction with what's going on at work. And kind of like the public versus kind of private demands are getting tested directly. Same day, you have the first quarter moon in Sagittarius, which is going to be in your 12th house, squaring your sun in the 9th. So this is saying you have to take action on private or subconscious matters, and likely intuitively you're going to know exactly what to do. The 21st, much better. It's a little bit more expansive. We've got Mercury in Libra, sextiling Jupiter in Leo. I think this is optimism in regards to changes with your job, relationships with people professionally, shared resources, making more money, negotiating deals, and some kind of expansive professional energy that's setting up. then on the 22nd, the sun falls into the 10th house, where all eyes are going to be on your career, reputation, and your work for the next several weeks. Now you'll be shifting towards, your career goals, your public image, and like how you're changing and transforming that. On the 25th, the sun will come into an opposition with Neptune. And this is really about clarity about your career, or kind of being in the spotlight. But are you overlooking family or a home matter? Are you overlooking some of your emotions? And like, there's confusion about what you're doing out in the world work-wise versus what you should be doing at home. And this is about balancing your public and your private life and trying to do it carefully. And then on the 26th, this is a big one. I think you are really going to feel this, because you're going to have a full moon in your 4th house of home and family, where the moon is conjunct Neptune and it's conjunct Saturn. Okay, so your Saturn, the moon is other people, and Neptune is your siblings. So there could be a really important conversation between your siblings and your parents, or maybe between your neighbors and yourself, or maybe between your partners and your parents. There's like a meeting of the minds that's going to go on. And this goes back to last year, this last spring, where we had a new moon that was in Aries. And like, if you think about February through April, my God, it was like so many difficult decisions having to be made about your home life, or your living, your family, a lot of family karma. So now it's all coming home to roost. And you'll have the sun in your 10th house of work opposing the moon in your 4th house of home. And it's ruled by Saturn. It's ruled by Mars, which is going to be at like 29 degrees-ish, squaring Chiron. And it almost feels like there's no way to win this situation. Now, what can a full moon in the 4th house do? Well, major culmination around home, family, and emotional foundation. So you may go back home, you may move, you may make a big decision about your living situation, you might relocate. Emotional peaks about private security and possible like restructuring of home. But I think it's going to come at some kind of cost, where you feel like you have to choose either a partner, or you have to choose your living situation. And the positive here is that the same day, the sun, which is going to be in your 10th house, is going to be coming into a trine with Pluto. So it basically means that there is some constructive intensity, about your professional and your financial breakthroughs. And so you're making decisions that are smarter for you financially, about where you're living, where you're working. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. On the 27th, you're going to see Mars enter into Leo. So it'll go into your natal 8th house. And this is a house that Mars actually does very well in, because he can kind of like kick ass and take names here. Like, he's really good at getting loans, or getting bills paid, or he's really sexy. There can be a lot of passion. And I also feel like for you, the energy is shifting towards shared resources, and it's also towards intimacy and transformation, research, and like there could be very rapid or quick healing that can happen when Mars goes through the 8th house. On the 28th, you're going to see the sun in your 10th house of Libra, trining Uranus in your 6th house, where there can be a positive sudden change with your work or your routine. New unexpected job opportunities, new schedules, and maybe liberating your professional or practical ideas. And it is connected to your work or your health. And then finally on the 30th, you'll see Mercury will enter into Scorpio, where it's going to be in your natal 11th house. So it's going to be joining Venus, where now communication, ideas, socializing, connecting with your community is very much on your radar. And you're thinking much more deeply about some of your friendships and also your future goals. I want to remind you that both of these planets will eventually retrograde here. So you're going to realize that not everybody who you're friends with is meant to be, somebody who stays in your corner. Some of your goals are going to be up for reevaluation in the weeks and months ahead, and there could be some really significant change in direction in your personal beliefs about the direction of your life. Now, your best days, Saturn doesn't get a single support whatsoever. There are no trines or sextiles or anything to Saturn, so you're kind of shit out of luck there. But I think that, the best days that are going to be generally supportive is going to be the 14th, when the Sun and Mars sextile each other, and the 21st, when Mercury and Jupiter sextile each other. Okay, you'll eventually get some stuff to Saturn, but that's not going to be until, Mars trines it and we get into Sagittarius season, so not quite yet. The other that you want to watch for maybe is like the sun going into your 10th house on the 22nd, where there's going to be a lot more emphasis on like your professional goals. Like that's going to be a time to really watch. Toughest days. I mean, obviously on the 1st, when Mars and Saturn square, you definitely want to watch for that. And the September 18th, when Mercury opposes Saturn. And then, you know, both are going to be afflicting your ruler directly. And then September 26th, I would watch that full moon in your 4th house because it's very close to Saturn, which is already retrograde. Arguably one of the more personally kind of loaded days for the whole month because I think it's a genuine kind of like release point. But the bottom line here, Capricorn, is that, you know, I think with like Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde in your 4th house, you're still restructuring. You're trying to figure out how your professional changes kind of fit into this restructuring. I think that the career focus is going to strengthen with the sun going into your 10th house. And you're really learning this month to kind of tend to home and family, and you're doing it with patience. And you're going to realize that it requires balance, and like public demands need to be handled very carefully right now. And, you know, you're allowing for, you know, deep resources and deep shifts. You're building lasting security from the inside out. You have to keep reminding yourself that there is steady progress that's being made. You may not be feeling like you're seeing it yet, but you're really going to start to see it as we're getting into October, especially professionally. Okay. All right. So the question is, what does my Capricorn and Capricorn risings, what do they need to know? Okay. Like I said, steady building, 3 of Pentacles. I love that Mercury is going into your 10th house. And I feel like this is about you being like, who do I know? You know, who can I work with, or who can I collaborate with, or who can I kind of band together with? And I think Mars in the 7th house is saying the same thing. And maybe it's going to be about kind of recognizing where there are some people who can actually help you if you allow them to, if you're not reluctant or if you're not resistant. This is about teamwork and effort. And I think a lot of that is coming through the professional realm, but I could also see that through the Saturn-Mars square. And also the full moon, you know, it's like basically being like, you have to put your head together either with a romantic partner, with your family, with a parent, to handle a home or a living situation, you know. And it may mean that there has to be a cutting or a severing because it's best for you guys to take space, or it's best for you to live separately or go your own way. Like that can happen. And it's about recognizing what each other needs and be willing to do the necessary constructive work to start to see the healing come in, right? Square to Chiron. But I think it's going to be a very productive time, especially for you guys work-wise. And I could see you guys putting some things together professionally. And I'll just say, you know, Mercury and Venus, they're going to be retrograde. So I think a lot of you guys in the next month or so, you're going to see a lot of career changes. May not be the best time to launch something. All right. I would encourage you, if you're going to be launching something or launching businesses or making big professional change, work with us through the next couple of months, but you're not going to be launching anything until at least mid-November on. Okay. So take your time. Hopefully that's helpful, Capricorn. I will catch you guys back here in, October? So leave me your comments below. Let me know what happens with this reading. Let me know how it hits. I always get a kick out of reading your comments. My Aquarius and Aquarius risings, welcome to your September 2026 horoscopes. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're thriving. Very excited to talk to you about what's shaking in the skies this month. Obviously, you know that you're ruled by Saturn, you're ruled by Uranus. By the end of the month, both of them are going to be retrograde. But nevertheless, I do think that this is a huge month for joy. I think it's a huge month for creativity and also your identity. And we're going to talk about why in just a minute. But let's get the bigger picture first. And basically the bigger picture is with Uranus being your modern day ruler, it is actually on the 10th going to turn retrograde in your 5th house of children, creativity, self-expression, your love life. Big plot twists that can be kind of happening there. And this could also be a major activation of joy, love, and your creative freedom that's kind of tapping in. Now, Pluto continues his retrograde in your sign. So if you are within the first 5 degrees of Aquarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising, you're under a Pluto transit. Hope you guys are doing well with that. I think that this is really about, I think with the retrograde, this ongoing identity transformation is just like a background hum of your entire life right now. So it may not feel as intense right now. Saturn and Neptune are retrograde in your 3rd. Saturn is your traditional ruler. So there's a lot of reevaluating and reassessing, you know, communications, contracts, things with vehicles, what you're learning, relationships to siblings, reevaluating a move, taking your time to listen maybe. And you're going to see Mars is sitting in Cancer in your 6th house for most of the month. And it will actually be breaking into Leo around the 27th, which is going to definitely bring the heat in relationships. And that'll be going on for several weeks. All right, so other than that, we're going to go day by day. We're going to talk about what's kind of happening in the skies. We are going to start first with the September 1st Mars-Saturn square. So because you're traditionally ruled by Saturn, you in Capricorn, you need to get your helmets on, you need to get ready for this square. It does not have to happen on the 1st of September. It can actually be like August 30th, 31st, September 1st, September 2nd. That several day window, Mars is bringing the heat. Now, Mars deals with cars, communication, contracts. It's moving through your 6th house of work, health, and habits, and it will square Saturn. Positive is you're in control. Saturn is you. So you get to dictate and determine what happens with your health, what happens with your schedule, what's going on with work. But I feel like you're going to be feeling a little irritated that you're having to take on more than you really should be taking on. Your schedule can be a little heavy. There can also be a sense of just mentally feeling kind of burdened with doing so much. And it can bring up some anxiety, some tension, some moodiness. It can also bring up some health issues. And so not a day to be driving recklessly, not a day to be trying to get a vehicle fixed, not a day to sign contracts, not a day to get a surgery, anything that involves traveling, signing things, health things, or job things, you need to proceed with caution because it's just not good. Both Mars and Saturn are debilitated. That's the long and short of it. But you're going to notice that there's this drive around work that is really meeting this really heavy mental kind of restriction, and you have to really be mindful of how you communicate with people about what you can and cannot take on. And slow and steady really wins the race here. Now, what's positive is that the same day, you're actually going to see Mercury, which will be in Virgo in your 8th house, sextiling Mars, And what this means is that it's supporting this deep, kind of transformative thinking and how to emotionally or psychologically or financially bring about some necessary change at work or when it comes to your health. So it's very productive for, kind of transformative, practical kind of conversations. Great day for physical therapy, for talk therapy, great day for problem solving, that kind of stuff, detoxes, cleanses, those types of things. On the 4th, you will see the last quarter moon in Gemini, where the moon will be going through Gemini in your 5th, squaring the sun in Virgo in your 8th. This is a release around something creatively. It can also be about taking a risk or anything in regards to romance or self-expression and kind of clearing something out. And then on the 10th, there is a cluster of a bunch of transits that are going to be happening at one time. So first things first, Venus is going to be moving into Scorpio. So she is going to be entering into your 10th house of career reputation. And she will spend a long time here. All right. So, Venus will go retrograde next month and she will go in and out of Scorpio and Libra. What I think about is that Venus is connected to your private life, your home, and your family. It's also going to be directly kind of connected to travel, legality, things that involve your beliefs, and you're really trying to kind of balance whatever's going on the home front with what you need to be doing out in the world at work. It can bring beautiful relationships, harmony, connections with people at work that can really be beneficial for you. But I think that where there's some intensity is that, Venus doesn't want surface. She wants power, she wants status, she wants a lot of transparency, and she's going to be squaring Pluto in your sign. So it's almost like you feel like you have to put work obligations, relationship obligations, family responsibilities, like it's just weighing very heavily on you and it feels uncomfortable due to the nature of that square, which you will have this month and you're going to have again in October and you're going to have it again in December. So take note of the square that's about how much is too much and where are you having to do too much or where are you not enjoying the flow of what you're doing work-wise any longer. Same day on the 10th, Mercury enters into your 9th house where your mind is on studies, traveling, legal matters, and finding balance when it comes to higher learning. And then Uranus, your chart ruler, will station retrograde in your 5th. And this is where there can be some big reveal about romance, creativity, children, and sudden insights or restlessness around joy, love, and self-expression. I'm expecting unexpected shifts maybe in how you play or how you create. I would give yourself a little bit of grace knowing that, Pluto's starting to square Venus, Uranus is retrograde. And I think that the finale is that you're going to have a new moon that's going to be in Virgo in your 8th house, where it's about setting practical intentions around shared resources, intimacy, release, joint finances, anything kind of connected to passion, research, psychological matters. It's ruled by Mercury, which is in your 9th. So likely you're trying to find funding, or there is some shift in your beliefs about education, relationships. Maybe you're trying to spend money or find the money for education or travel. And this is sextiling Mars. So this is where, like, yes, there can be there's some tension at work or regarding health matters, but this is about where it's going to be supported by removing something. So detoxing, psychologically talking through things, working through some kind of crisis, and like really confronting the shadow. On the 12th, Mercury trines Pluto, which is a great day for you. I feel like it's positive because there is this expansive thinking that is supporting your own personal identity and transformation. So powerful for self-reinvention and like self-expression. Only hang up here is that Mercury is going to come into an opposition with Neptune. And then that tells me that there is some clarity that's a little foggy around, confusion and communication, booking travel plans, signing contracts, and like you have to double and triple check all information, especially if it's travel involved, legal involved, or financial involvement. Then on the 13th, you're going to see Mercury then trine Uranus, your ruler, where there can be some unexpected good news, where risks can pay off, where there can be some unexpected news tied to children, education, travel, and progressive ideas about joy that are very strongly favored on this day. On the 14th, when the Sun in Virgo in your 8th house sextiles Mars in Cancer in your 6th, and this is about, like I said, where you're psychologically tackling some of these health-related issues, you're purging things, removing things. It's about transformative vitality that's supporting work and health action. So very productive. It's about taking deep practical steps and getting down to the details, whether that's financially, emotionally, or psychologically. On the 15th is a red flag day when Venus in your 10th squares Pluto in your 1st. The only positive is that there is going to be a sextile between Uranus and Neptune, between Neptune and Pluto. So you get a little bit of support. And this is intensity between career and public image and identity. And I feel like underneath there is a subtle alignment of like changes in your daily thinking and also like your kind of personal transformation with that sextile. I would say like there can be power struggles with women at work, or people who are being kind of like people who are jealous or kind of envious of you. And relationships can feel a little prickly in the professional sense. And then on the 17th, Chiron will retrograde back into Aries in your 3rd house, where there's wounds that are now coming up to be kind of finally healed in regards to communication, siblings, learning, self-expression, and that all kind of wants to be healed. And then on the 18th, you need to watch out for Mercury in Libra in your 9th, opposing Saturn in Aries in your 3rd. Not a good travel day, not a good contract day, not a good day for communications, because there's going to be this issue where you might have a tiff with like a lawyer or with a mentor or a guru. There's some restriction revolving around your beliefs and how you communicate. Big ideas versus practical kind of reality checks get tested. And the same day, there's going to be a 1st quarter moon in Sagittarius where the moon will be squaring the sun. This is about taking action in friendships and when it comes to your future goals. Now on the 21st, things get a little lighter. It's more growth oriented with Mercury in your travel zone. That's going to be sextiling Jupiter in your relationship zone, where you're feeling optimistic, you're expansive, you're thinking more positively about your relationships, and you're very growth oriented about the future. And it's great for maybe getting away with a partner, planning a trip, or maybe just kind of connecting with a mentor. And on the 25th of the month, you're going to see the Sun in Libra in your 9th will come into an opposition with Neptune in your 3rd. And I feel like there can be something that you overlook financially about travel or about like a financial document. This is also a time where you can get scammed. There is some misunderstandings or clarity that's kind of getting blurred with communication issues. So you have to stay realistic about your vision versus like your daily facts here. There will be a full moon in Aries on the 26th. This will be taking place in your natal third house, where the moon is going to be conjunct Neptune and also Saturn. Okay. Now, this is a culmination around vehicles, siblings, contracts, communication, learning, daily movement. And it's really highlighting how you think, how you speak, and connect locally. This will be ruled by Mars, and you're going to see Mars squaring Chiron. So there can still be a little bit of like tension about how you communicate at work or how you're dealing with a work situation and some mental stress. I also think just due to the nature of the moon being conjunct Saturn, it may be a good day to be like, you know what, it's time to turn the phone off. I need to take a break, or I need to go for a walk, or I need to listen to a podcast. Like, you don't need to be feeling like you need to be over communicating, because there can be some conversations that can stress you out. Keep an eye on your vehicles, your siblings, and any contracts around this date. And then on the 27th, Mars enters into your opposite sign. It's going to go into your 7th house of relationships, where it's going to be bringing the heat for the next 6 weeks. Basically, partnership energy and drive is really strengthening with confidence here. If you're single, there could be a lot more dynamic kind of actions going on with relationships and dating and meeting people. That might be tied to dating apps. It might also be tied to short distance travel or to traveling with family. Or this could really strengthen your business partnerships or your professional alliances. The only thing I want to tell you is that at the beginning of October, Mars is going to start opposing Pluto. So as soon as it gets into this house, you're going to feel some kind of tension between where other people want to proceed forward and you're still reevaluating, who you are and how you're kind of changing with Pluto retrograde in your sign. Now on the 28th, you're going to see the Sun in Libra in your 9th, trining Uranus in your 5th, where there's sudden insights about beliefs, creativity, children, romance, liberating ideas, opportunities for education, and things that are going to bring meaning to your life, and it's going to bring you some sense of personal joy. On the 30th, finally, Mercury moves into your 10th house of career, where your mind is on your business and also on changes and transformations that's kind of happening in your professional zone. Now, this is where thinking deepens when it comes to your career and your public kind of direction. Now, your best days, because Uranus is your modern ruler, are going to be the two soft aspects you're going to have, September 13th with Mercury trine Uranus and September 28th with the Sun trine Uranus. Both are going to put your ruler in kind of easy flow. I would say secondary days are maybe September 14th and the 21st. And the more difficult days, I think, is definitely going to be the fact that, number one, Saturn is it's retrograde. Okay, so you're feeling that. And then number two, on the 1st, when Mars in your 6th house squares Saturn. Also on the 18th, when Mercury opposes Saturn. And both deserve equal weight as difficult days. And I think Uranus retrograding isn't necessarily bad, but it can feel a little disorienting. And especially since it's your chart ruler, give yourself a little grace around the 10th when that retrograde begins. But bottom line is, for my Aquarius risings, I like Uranus stationing retrograde in your 5th, because I think it's going to help you rewire how you experience joy and maybe love and go back to some creative projects. Pluto continuing its retrograde is keeping that identity transformation going strong. And the full moon, I think, is clarifying how you communicate and how you learn. Just watch as Mars goes into your opposite sign in your 7th house at the end of the month, that it's bringing energy into partnerships, and it's bringing romance, it's bringing confidence, it's bringing a little bit of pizzazz. So maybe stay open to kind of sudden creative insights, and let old versions of yourself maybe fall away this month. And you're really kind of innovating your own life, and you're doing it from kind of the heart outward with Uranus retrograde in your 5th. All right, so let's see, what do the cards have to say for my Aquarius and Aquarius risings? What do they need to know about this month ahead in September? What advice does the tarot want to give them? Oh, wow. 10 of Cups. That's one of the better cards you can pull. How can that materialize? I mean, obviously the 10 of Cups is the happily ever after card, right? So this can be about some of your, relationship goals, some of your family goals, some of your home goals all coming to fruition. Maybe that's just due to the nature of Venus going into the 10th, where it's like finally you feel like I'm on top of the world, and you're in a position where you feel like you can provide more for your family. It can also mean that this is connected to Mars going into your 7th, that your relationships are helping support some of the direction you're going with your career. And also it's influencing, you know, some of your 3rd house. So better communication with family, kind of feeling like you guys are making some headway. But the happily ever after card, so it's basically saying, like, emotionally, I think you're going to be feeling very fulfilled. I think you're going to feel good about some of the changes happening this month. And even with Uranus retrograde, it can mean that there can be some surprising things that can be happening with your family or involving children or romantic partners, but it's actually something that's going to be a blessing or something that feels like is very exciting and it's like very happy and it's like worth kind of celebrating. So one of the better cards that you can actually pull, and I'm kind of surprised considering like you're going to have this retrograde and a square to Saturn, and also planets going through your 8th house, which is a lot about change. So maybe you're just kind of learning to kind of say, hey, it's more about what's going on in my relationships or what's going on with my family. There's going to be stuff that's going to be changing the next couple of months in your professional zone anyway. And I think maybe you're just taking stock in the fact that your family grounds you, or your core friends, or, you know, your roommates or whoever's close to you, your relationship, they're grounding you and they're kind of helping you really kind of prioritize what's important and really feel supported. All right, Aquarius, don't forget to leave me your comments. Let me know what happens throughout the month. Leave them down below. I love to read your guys' kind of insights and how this plays out for you. I'll catch you guys back here in October. Pisces and Pisces risings, welcome to your September 2026 overview. How you guys doing? How is that eclipse in your sign? You feeling good? You guys have to let me know how you're feeling. That was the last eclipse, so hopefully it was positive for you. I know a lot of things are changing in your world right now. And as you guys know, you're ruled by Neptune. You're also ruled by Jupiter. So we're going to be talking about both of those planets. But, you know, as we're closing out the signs with you, I would say your month is really about redefining what security actually means. And we're going to kind of get into why I think that. Big picture is your modern day ruler Neptune is continuing its retrograde in your 2nd house, and that's not going to change this month. So there still is this internal reflection on what is money, what brings me security, what is my self-worth all month long. And it's happening alongside Saturn in the same sign. So you're restructuring your sense of security and you're kind of dissolving and rebuilding. And I think with these planets retrograde, there isn't as much pressure in that department. Now, your other planetary ruler is Jupiter, and Jupiter is direct. It's actually going to be the only outer planet that's going to be direct this month in your 6th house of health, habits, and routine. So I know a lot of you guys are like working new jobs, or you're starting new businesses, or maybe you're getting involved in the service industry. Maybe it's the travel industry. Some of you guys are also really focusing on your health and your habits. And so all of those things are good. You're coming off of the high at the end of last month where you had Jupiter and Saturn trine. So hopefully you guys had some good money and work stuff that kind of happened there. And as for where the other planets are this month, you were going to see that Pluto is continuing his retrograde in your 12th house of the subconscious. So it's more about reflecting and kind of releasing and letting go. You're going to see that Mars is continuing to move through Cancer for most of the month, which is pretty friendly for you, honestly. It'll be trining you by sign in some way, shape, or form. So there's a lot more action in romance, children, creativity, self-expression. And at the end of the month, you're going to see closer to the 27th, it's going to go into Leo in your 6th house, which is going to be about work, health, habits, productivity, obviously being in the same sign as Jupiter. So you're going to get a real kind of power up when it comes to your health and your fitness. And you're going to also see that Uranus is going to turn retrograde around the 10th in your 4th house of home and family. He's kind of creating some problems for you guys. Like last month, he squared the Pisces eclipse. So a lot of you guys were suddenly like, whoa, home change or family change, you know? If you happen to be like the first, I would say 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees of Pisces, sun, moon, rising, you're still under a Uranus square this year. So anything goes, your home life, your emotions, your family can kind of turn on a dime. So watch for some of those changes, okay? But we're going to be talking about what's going on with all the other planets and how they're kind of dancing through the skies. We have to talk about the very first transit, which is a bit of a bummer. We are going to see Mars moving through Cancer in your 5th house, coming into a square with Saturn in your 2nd house, okay? So Mars-Saturn squares, it feels like hitting a speed bump or a stop sign. We want to move forward, but we get delayed or we get thwarted in some way. So the 5th house is about your children, your romance, your creativity, your hobbies, and like some kind of reality check that you're getting around what you should be spending, what you can afford, what something is actually going to cost. And this is about joy versus security concerns. Choose realistic pleasure over avoidance and only be investing yourself in things that really feel like they're going to be valuable for you in the long run. I always laugh when I see this square because it's like we want to gamble, we want to take risks, we want to start businesses, we want to do art projects. And it's like then we look at our bank account and we're like, ooh, can I actually afford this? So try to be conservative with having fun. You don't have to break the bank to be creative or to be romantic. Positive also is that the same day, you're going to see Mercury, which is going to be in your relationship zone, sextiling Mars. So that tells me that there's going to be a partnership conversation or some kind of support that's kind of supporting your creative project, your action, maybe something involving children, and it can be very productive for collaborative kind of joyful conversations, maybe to ease some of your financial concerns. Now on the 4th, you're going to see a last quarter moon in Gemini, where the moon in Gemini is squaring the sun in Virgo. It's going to kind of sting a little bit because it's kind of coming off of this most recent eclipse. Basically, this is about releasing something around home and family and some major changes with your emotional foundations. Then on the 10th, there is a cluster of a bunch of things happening at one time. So I'm going to go through all of them one by one. We have Venus that's going to enter into Scorpio, which I actually think you guys are going to like because it's a fellow sister water sign. And she's going to go into the 9th house where you're willing to splurge on upgrades, traveling, education. Love can be found at a distance. You're really falling in love with the idea of learning. And Venus is connected maybe to, siblings or things connected to books or podcasts or things connecting to education or programs. And it's also connected to investments. So you might be kind of saying to somebody, well, it's worth investing in this program or it's worth spending a little bit of money, to kind of get the flight upgrades. And this is also going to be a time where I think with Mercury entering into your 8th house, okay, so Mercury goes into your 8th house, your thinking turns towards balance and shared resources and intimacy and trying to negotiate some financial wins. And then Uranus stations retrograde in your 4th house the same day where there is this sudden plot twist or restlessness around home, around family, and your domestic or emotional patterns are really shifting internally. Now, finally, we have a new moon that's going to be in Virgo in your opposite sign in your 7th house of relationships. So if you're in a relationship, this is where you set new intentions about how you connect with your partner. If you're looking for a relationship, this is where you plant seeds about kind of connecting with others. I love this new moon. I think with the sextile to Mars, it can be very romantic and it can also be strengthening the bonds and relationships and reigniting some passion. There's a lot of momentum to meet people who want romance or maybe who want home or family related things with the sextile to Mars. And it's ruled by Mercury, which is going to be in your 8th house, which means there can be not just passion, there can be also true intimacy, vulnerability, communication, and talking about building and kind of like aligning with another person who wants the same thing that you want out of life. On the 12th of the month, you're going to be seeing Mercury trines Pluto. So Mercury is actually going to be in your 8th house of joint finances. It will trine Pluto in your 12th house of what's hidden behind the scenes. So what's difficult about this is that Mercury will oppose Neptune, and that does not make it so positive for you. It means that your ruler is involved, and there's this deep thinking that supports private or spiritual transformation and some kind of internal insight. Honestly, I feel like it means that you're going to have to release or let something go. With Mercury in opposition to Neptune in your 2nd house, it's about getting clarity about shared resources and some confusion about money and values. So you have to double check any financial things because there can be fraud, there can be misunderstandings about money. And I feel like with Saturn and Neptune in your 2nd house, like you don't have to be spending as much. You don't have to be giving as much. In fact, over the next couple of months, you're going to notice with retrogrades in your 8th and planets opposing your 2nd, you just have to ask for support. You have to ask for help. So your prices need to go up. Your partners need to contribute more. Maybe it means that you are tapping into inheritance. You're tapping into savings. You're, filing insurance claims. You're looking at getting refunds. It's about basically being like, why do I have to be the one who has to pay for everything? Like, this is what it costs. How are we going to pay this, or how are we going to do this together? And maybe some inquiries about like debt and loans that can happen with planets going into this 8th. But Not a good day on the 12th for any financial decisions, okay? On the 13th, Mercury will start to come into a trine with Uranus, and this is about unexpected changes on the home front or new ideas when it comes to emotional security, home, family, or intimacy. And then on the 14th, the Sun and Mars are going to be in an exact sextile between your 7th and your 5th house. So lots of action in partnerships, supporting creativity, supporting children, supporting romance, very sexy, and it feels very heartfelt, and it's good for collaborative action. On the 15th, this does involve a Venus-Pluto square. So you are going to be seeing with Venus in your 9th, it will make the very first square to Pluto in your 12th. This will happen now. It's going to happen again in October. It's going to happen again in December. And Venus wants to travel and indulge in the 9th house, but the square to Pluto means there may be some unexpected changes to the plans. And that can be travel plans, education plans, so on and so forth. What's interesting is the very same day, Neptune and Pluto are going to sextile. So you may intuitively feel like, ooh, I knew this was going to come up, or there was going to be like a snag. And even though there's some intensity, there is like this spiritual shift where you're just like, I know something has to, change and transform. And I think it's this link between material security and, knowing what you need to kind of release and really trust the universe that they're going to support you, and like things are going to work out in your favor. Okay. Be that financially or in regards to travel. On the 17th, we're going to see Chiron is going to retrograde back into Aries in your 2nd house. It's in the same sign as Neptune, so it's touching on some of the same themes. That's kind of like, okay, healing wounds, or finally coming back around to the idea of healing wounds around money, self-worth, values. That's all kind of coming up for necessary healing. And then on the 18th, Mercury in your 8th house of intimacy and other people's money will oppose Saturn. And this is another very strict financial day where somebody might be inquiring, will you pay for this? Or can I have some money? Or, are you going to cover this? And I would say Saturn retrograde is like, no, I can't. That's not my job. We need to do it together. We need to find, a balanced kind of solution. And this is where shared resources meet some kind of restriction around personal values. And this is about merging versus self-reliance getting tested. And the same day, you're going to have the first quarter moon in Sagittarius, where the moon is going to be in your 10th house squaring the sun in the 7th. So you have to take action on a career or like your public direction in some way. We get to the 21st, things even up a little bit. There is a much more expansive energy. To me, it looks like it's really quite positive with Mercury in your 8th house sextile Jupiter in your 6th, where there could be some good news at work. There could be some health or psychological or financial breakthroughs. I think that optimistic, thinking is supporting your work or your health, and you're more expansive, and there is some practical kind of improvements in your daily routine. 22nd of the month, the sun enters into Libra in your natal 8th house. So there is this shift in focus on resources, intimacy, transformation, anything that's more psychological, and it'll be there for several weeks. And then on the 25th, this involves your ruler again. The sun will actually make an opposition to Neptune. And so this is another be careful day with financial matters. I think there's like this clarity about merging that blurs with some confusion around your money and others. Stay realistic about shared versus personal kind of resources. You may need to be a little bit more cautious with trying to merge something financially with another person. It may be a good idea to go and get some financial advice on this day if you're not too sure how to navigate a tax situation, a saving situation, a credit situation, rather than just putting all of your money, into one thing. Like, go and get some feedback. And then on the 26th of the month, you're going to see a full moon in Aries, which is very personal for you, by the way. The moon is going to be in conjunction to Neptune, and that is your ruler. Moon rules your 5th house. Neptune is you in the 2nd house. So there is a sense of maybe figuring out what you value in relationships, what you want to charge for your art, what your prices are going to be for your own business, what you really value when it comes to love, when it comes to children, maybe making a big financial decision. And this is ruled by Mars, which is going to be in your 5th house squaring Chiron. So it's almost like you're like, I really want to have this breakthrough in a relationship or involving children or like a business, and like I'm giving birth to something, and it's like you're just like, how am I going to figure it out financially, But I think that emotional peak is really about security and what you truly need, and a redefinition of your resources, and really protecting the things that you value the most. And if you're really passionate about how you're making money, or a situation involving, let's say, family or your job, you're going to be like, no, like, I know that this is what I need to kind of like show up for. And maybe you're going to be saving more, maybe you're willing to spend more, and there can be some big financial expenses somehow connecting to children or creative projects. On the 27th, Mars enters into Leo, and it's going to be in your 6th house, where immediately it starts picking up the energy of Jupiter, your ruler. So it's like work, 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 work. The energy is shifting towards work, health, daily routines, and a lot more confidence. And I feel like throughout the next 6 weeks, going to the gym, working out, coming up with a routine, making sure that you're eating on a certain, schedule, you're working out on a certain schedule, you're walking the dog, you're getting your jobs done, all of your household stuff too, is really important. But it's also important to make time for fun and creativity, right, Leo? So I think that there's this energy shift, and you're going to have a lot more confidence. And I would really encourage you guys to have an outlet for some of that energy physically. Now, on the 28th of the month, the sun in Libra in your 8th will come into a trine with Uranus in your 4th. And this is liberating ideas about intimacy, emotional foundations, and it's all somehow connected to your home in some way. So it's about positive home and financial change. And then finally, at the end of the month, you're going to see on the 30th, Mercury is going to enter into Scorpio, and it's going to be kind of coming into the same sign as Venus. Now, Mercury rules your relationships. It's also tied to your home. So like a lot of you guys are going to be like, I want to get out of the house. I want to travel. Or maybe love at a distance, relationships at a distance. Maybe your mind is more on communication and values. And you're just thinking more deeply about traveling and higher learning. These two planets, Mercury and Venus, are in the same signs, which they will retrograde through in the months ahead. So travel plans can change, okay? Educational plans can change. Graduations, weddings, things can get rescheduled. So I just want you guys to think about that. Might be a good idea that, you maybe hit pause on scheduling some of these things, or you have insurance, or you have some kind of guarantee that you can get refunds. This is also a time that you guys might be reminiscing about old relationships, or wanting to travel to places to kind of like connect with old partners. And so that is a possible energy that might appear this month. Now, the best days for you is going to be September 15th. Because this is where Neptune and Pluto are going to be sextiling each other. So it's quiet, but it's building confidence. And I think the 21st is nice too, because you're going to see Mercury that's going to sextile Jupiter. And that's going to be an easier day, especially when it comes to joint finances, work, and health. And September 14th is also like a solid secondary day. Now, keep in mind, Neptune's going to take some hits this month. So, I would say, don't just watch that full moon. You guys really need to be watching September 12th, when Mercury and Neptune oppose, where you may not see eye to eye with a partner about finances, and the 25th, when the sun opposes Neptune. Both bring confusing, energetic drain, boundary blurs, over idealizing situations, feeling victimized by someone or something, especially around money and relationships. You need to be careful here. But I think September 25th is the stronger of the two, so since it's kind of hit by the sun right before the full moon. So watch that day. But the bottom line is, Pisces, I think that Saturn and Neptune retrograde in your 2nd is just dissolving and rebuilding your sense of security and values right now. And the full moon is going to bring that all to full illumination of what you truly need. And Uranus is rewiring your home and your emotional foundations, although I'm sure there's been a few bumps in the road there. And I think you're going to like Mars in your 6th house. Channel that energy into productive improvement, self-care, getting busy, getting organized, and maybe trust the dissolution process, because whatever remains is going to be more real for you. And know that you're just kind of redefining from a deeper, more kind of compassionate place as these retrogrades continue. All right, well, let's ask the cards. What do we need to know for my Pisces and my Pisces risings for the month ahead? What do they need to be aware of in the month of September? Ooh, Judgment. Ooh, I think a lot of this is like about you being like, I'm finally making the decision, to confront something. And I think it's confronting something financially, honestly, or confronting something in relationships. Judgment is sometimes about something being resurrected, okay? So I think about how The new moon is saying you're planting new seeds in relationships. Finally, the South Node is not there, so you're not going back and forth with the old stuff. I think a lot of my Pisces and Pisces risings are like, I'm moving forward. I'm choosing joy. I'm choosing travel. I'm choosing creativity. I'm not waiting around for other people to figure out what they want. And if we don't see eye to eye on things, then I'm finally going to pull the trigger and I'm going to make some decisions that are going to align better with me. And these have been a long time coming. Truth be told, I mean, some of you guys have relationships you could just totally shelf right now, that if you've been having problems in relationships, you won't see until next year. You know, like let's say January through April, Mars will retrograde in your 7th. Eclipses are going to be in your 7th. There is still time to deal with relationships. I think right now, some of you guys feel like you need to travel, you need to find yourselves, and you need to get into a state of flow that just feels good for you. And so if you've been thinking about making these changes, you've been sitting on like, you know, kind of like the precipice of making change, now is the time to do it. And I hope that that's helpful. Obviously, leave me your comments below, Pisces. Would love to hear how that eclipse played out for you, how some of these predictions are hitting for you by the end of September. I will 100% be here next month in October to talk to you about all the other things that are going on. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you can catch those. And for everybody else who is one of those people who watches all the way through the end, thank you guys so much for watching my content. Thank you for your likes, your comments, your shares, for subscribing to the channel. I know we've got people on Spotify, on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, and we have a growing community. So make sure you guys subscribe to my content so you can see more of my videos. These long format videos are always here for your monthly horoscopes. I'm always gonna have you guys covered. And I really want to hear how these transits are playing out for you guys. So drop me your comments. If you guys found this helpful, please do consider liking or sharing this on the socials. While you're there, follow me on X or on Instagram at BTV Astro. Now, if you want to get a personal reading with me and you want to maybe do a natal chart reading, or you want to do an annual forecast, relationship reading, election reading, I do it all, but I am a very busy girl. I am booking into November and December right now. So if you are a Scorpio, if you are a Sag, if you're a Capricorn, I highly recommend booking your appointments. You guys can see my availability down below. Head over to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. There you can see my newsletters, and I do recommend subscribing to them because I am going to be putting out some webinars like the Venus retrograde, the Mars retrograde, coming up here soon over the next couple of months. You guys will be first on the list to get the early bird specials for when those things become available. And you can also check out my courses and my digital transit calendars. So I'm wishing everybody a beautiful month of September. I hope it is very productive and hopefully a little bit calmer than what we saw in August, you know, in the eclipse season. And I will catch you guys back here next month in October. Until next time, you guys take care and enjoy your month.